Welcome to the Pacific Grove Unified School District Board of Education regular meeting on Thursday, June 1st, 2023. As we begin this meeting, it's important to pay respect to and acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Ohlone, Costanoan, and Esalen people, and additionally that we pay respect to elders, both past and present. Roll call vote, please.
President Swanson.
Sorry, and I didn't mean to say vote, just meant to say roll call.
Here. Clerk McNary.
Here.
Dr. Hazen.
Here.
Trustee Otmar.
Here.
Trustee Swanson.
Here.
Superintendent Porras.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Jorn.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy. And Ralph, do we have any changes to the agenda?
The only change we noted earlier was that there's a revision to the minutes of March 18 to include Dr. Irene Preciado during the resignation reception. So that's the only change.
Okay. Board, any questions or comments on that? On the agenda?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. And any public wanting to comment on the adoption of the agenda tonight? Lewis, anyone online? Wishing to do so, I should say. Aha, 0. Put my glasses on, I can see that. Thank you. And I don't see anyone here in public making their way up to the podium. So with that, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I will make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Thank you, Trustee Dr. Hazen.
I'll second that.
Ta-da! Okay,
Whoa.
Trustee Brian Swanson. So a motion made by Elliot Hazen, seconded by Brian Swanson. Majority vote, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all for that. Moving on, I'll just describe briefly our closed session items that we plan to tackle. Closed session items. Number 1, negotiations, collective bargaining session planning and preparation with the PGTA for 2021-22 and 22-23 school years. Number 2, public employee discipline dismissal release complaint. Number 3, conference with legal counsel -- anticipated litigation, 2 cases. Number 4, negotiations with unrepresented employee, meet and confer adult education teachers. Number 5, negotiations with unrepresented employees, position superintendent. And that is the list of the closed session items. Do we have any public comment on the closed session topics? Seeing none, and it's not on the agenda, but board, do you have anything you want to say about the closed session topics? No. Okay. And with that, I don't see anyone here in person. We will adjourn to closed session. Thank you.
Just so many. I mean,
We are coming back from closed session.
we are.
Thank you, everyone. Let's see. All right, so a quick report out on our items in closed session. Number 1, negotiations. The board received an update. No direction was given. Number 2, information was given. You know what, let me read out. Number 2, public employee discipline dismissal release complaint, information was given. Number 3, conference with legal counsel related to 2 cases of anticipated litigation. No information was given to the board. Number 4, negotiations with unrepresented employees for the meet and confer adult education teachers. No information was given. And number 5, negotiations with unrepresented employees for the position of superintendent. No information was given. And with that, Jennifer McNary, would you like to lead the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Clerk McNary. Okay, next up is the part of the meeting where board members disclose their written communications they received. So I'll go first, and then please, board members, listen. If I missed one, let me know. Okay, so I got an email related to the appreciation for Mr. Valverde. A gratitude email for the 5% / $1,000 increase in pay and benefits to management. An email regarding the music interview, an email regarding Pacific Grove High School election info. And just board, so you know, next year, we're gonna have 2 student representatives from PG High School, Daisy Dishney and Dario DiMaggio. So that's exciting. An email from regarding NCBA Concert Band Festival and high praise for the musicianship of PG High Concert Band. An email regarding an agenda item related to cannabis. 3 emails with concerns related to Action H, which is Action H that's on our agenda tonight. An email related to the possible use of Meals on Wheels for superintendent interviews, and an email that was an invitation to the Delray Oaks Pride flag raising that actually took place today, and I think is during this time frame. So all of us are here and unfortunately not able to make it, even if we desired. So board, did I miss any, or did you get any that I didn't get? Anyone? Clerk McNary?
I also received emails from Community Human Services related to my membership on that board.
Oh, okay. Trustee Otmar, anything else?
Not via email, but I did, it was an in-person communication
Mhm.
from a staff member asking that if there are issues that come up that the board's addressing or anything that's in the packet, if we could be mindful that those things are earlier in the evening as opposed to at the end of the evening, so that they might not have to stay up if we're running late.
Okay. Trustee Brian Swanson?
Well covered, nothing further from me.
Okay, and trustee Dr. Hazen?
Nothing else. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Thank you. Okay, board member comments. If y'all don't mind, I'll start just really quickly. We had just such an eventful May. I've heard people call it the year of May, especially in education, because it's just so much on the calendar, an unbelievable amount. And I'm a board member, so I'm not coordinating the events or the graduations or the promotions. And somehow my calendar is jam-packed. So I don't know how the staff are doing it. So anyways, thank you to everyone who put on promotions, graduations. There was even a graduation this morning at 10 a.m. So they're still happening and it's June. Incredible. And just one last salute to our student trustee, Ray Avila, who is not here at this meeting because it is truly his summer break now. But every single one of us, I think I can speak for every single one of us, we really cherished having him on the board this year. Incredible young person. So that's all I have. So I'll go to trustee Dr. Hazen next.
Just reiterate, it was amazing to see the diversity of graduation experiences in our district and be able to meet some of the graduates in a way that, and in a role that I haven't had before. So, yep, thank you. Exactly what President Carolyn said. Thank you to everyone who helped put it on, and congrats to all of the graduates and promotions of 2023.
Yeah, and welcome to trustee Dr. Hazen, trustee Otmar, and trustee Clerk McNary. That was your first graduation, high school graduation, and others that you've been to. So welcome. You're officially now trustees. Clerk McNary.
No, just to piggyback on what you both said, I think it was a really exciting, fun time. Probably the most fun I've had since being on the board. It truly beats reading packets and long meetings, and also totally reminds us like why we're up here doing what we do. And it was really moving to hear the student speeches and touching to see how much support everybody had from friends and family, and just a great time to celebrate all the accomplishments of our students. So I had a great time.
Yeah, super energizing. Trustee Otmar.
Just congratulations to all the graduates and happy summer to all. That's all I have.
Absolutely. Trustee Brian Swanson.
Yeah, congrats to the graduates, to everyone who is here, who has been part of the graduates' lives, and you've all been part of their lives. It's really remarkable. It really is. Thank you to my fellow trustees for letting me be the one to hand off to Ray. I know you guys know that meant a lot to me. And it meant so much to me to be able to do that. I don't know how many graduations now I've been to, but the ones that I was present for this year, you know, for PG High and Community High, which I love so much, and the adults ed, you know, those students too. It's just, I wish there was a better word than remarkable, but I think, and when I think about it, it's like, what happens in this district, and it's not just about our young people, it's about everybody. We're helping educate everybody, and we do a really, really wonderful job of that, you know, so I'm really taken by that. And the other thing that I was thinking about a few minutes ago, you know, as we came out of closed session, is that we had a really wonderful closed session. We have a really great group of people here, and it was productive. And there are things that we don't get to talk about, right? We don't really need to, we can't get into the nitty gritty details of that stuff. But the people that I sit here on this board with are remarkable people, and they have incredible insight and varied backgrounds. And the people that were in closed session with too, Dr. Paris and Josh and Buck and Billy and everybody, it's like I'm sorry, I'm going on, but it's like I look around this room and we're really, really lucky to have this group of people that we have, because everybody really, really cares. So thank you, everybody who's in this room and everybody who might be tuning in right now too and watching it. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, next up is our superintendent report. And Dr. Portis, is this technically? Yeah, I'll let you say it.
It is. It's my last board meeting.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, the stars align, right? This is meeting 360.
What?
So it's a full circle, and which was interesting to me. And so
Tell everyone, have you ever missed a meeting
I've not missed a single board meeting
in
so,
16 years?
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's
Really incredible.
well, it's always very important to me. I
Sure.
appreciate you noting that. Yeah, it's always been important. But I think as Trustee Brian was saying, I don't want to say a ton. I want to just simply express my appreciation to everyone. The graduations in particular, we have such an amazing staff, the classified and certificated and administrative team. I mean, just year after year after year, watching the incredible work that happens, just remarkable. And I know as a board, you're so very proud of them, and I know the community is, but I can simply just want to reiterate, you know, as well, how very proud I am of them and how proud I've been to be a part of it. You know, it's no one person does everything. And I'm grateful to the team. This administrative team has just been remarkable. And so it's kind of that bittersweet moment, right? For sure. And everything's so hard when you make these decisions, but my heart will always still be here. I live in town. I have a child, you know, going to school here, and I'm very vested in the progress of the district and how things go, and grateful to have been all a part of it. And I mentioned it before, but I'm going to reiterate it right here. Thank you for your service as trustees. I mean, this just, you know, I've worked with a lot of board members and a lot of boards here in PG, and everyone brings their unique talents. But I'll tell you, it's for you to volunteer your time to look through 800, 1,000-page packets to deal with the decisions that you have to make, right? With everyone watching and understanding that there's a weight to it. I'm in awe. It's just remarkable. So thank you for the service that you give to our students, the community, to education. It's just amazing. And again, I'll carry that as well as I move forward. And so I'm going to start getting too teary-eyed. So I'm just going to stop with that and simply say thank you to everyone. Thank you for a wonderful close of the year. And I look forward to still being part of the district in some way or another as time continues forward. So anyway, thank you.
And we know that you like to have your Hershey nuggets.
Is this where it came from?
Yeah, so that's a little gift from the board. So you
Thank
can
you.
you can have your
Thank you.
Hershey nuggets wherever you choose.
I'm gonna crack this open right at the
You're gonna share?
beginning of the next year. I'm gonna crack it
Oh.
open. I'm gonna save it for a moment and just enjoy it.
You're not gonna share.
I have others I can bring if you need them now. though.
And a very small Starbucks card to just get
Thank
your
you all. That's
your last little drink.
very, very cool. Appreciate it.
So there you are. Okay, now we're on to the part of the meeting, individuals desiring to address the board. So public comment on any item of interest to members of the public that's within the board's jurisdiction will be heard tonight. The board will also take public comment on each specific action item prior to the board action on the agenda item. So in other words, if there's an action item on this agenda, we will call out for public comment and invite public comment before we take action on it. Any individual wishing to comment on a specific item on the current agenda are kindly asked to wait until that item is being discussed. The board will allow a reasonable amount of time for public comment on each agenda item, not to exceed 3 minutes per speaker and no more than 20 minutes per agenda item pursuant to our board policy 9323. So having said all that, we're now going to open it up first to Pacific Grove Unified School District staff comments. And these comments can come to us either online or here in person. If you're online, please just raise your hand, and we have Director Algaze keeping an eye to see if anyone raises their hand digitally. And if anyone here in person would like to come up, please do so at this time. I thought I saw somebody, but I guess I did not. So I'm just going to give it a moment for some PGUSD staff comments. I realize it's also kind of the beginning of summer, so it's okay if we don't have many comments. Okay, what's their name? Willow Magma. Are you a PGUSD staff member?
I am not.
Okay. Well, we are excited to hear from you. And in just one moment, we'll shift over to community members, and that will be the perfect time for you to speak up. And I think we're going to get to that time pretty shortly here because no one in public in person is coming up either. So, oh, I apologize. Barbara Martinez, please go ahead and comment.
Oh, let me get my camera on. Hold on. There we go. Hi, everybody. I'm Barbara Martinez. Nice to see everybody tonight. I wanted to start off by saying, I'm just so proud to be a part of this district. And Ralph, it is truly a sad day to see you in your last board meeting. Excited to see what comes forward for you. I have been under your leadership for 14 of your 16 years here in the district. And I'm just so proud to be under your leadership. And to Ralph, Billy, Claire, and Stephanie, you know, you are definitely going to be missed, but excited to see what excitement and what brings in the future for you. I do want to share today, we had our ESL celebration at the adult school. And in honor of what we're doing with cultural proficiency in the district, this was unsolicited from one of our ESL students. And I just want to take one moment to share a part of his speech. He was noted as the ambassador for level B on the special particular day. And part of his speech reads, as a matter of fact, 23 students from 13 different nationalities around the world have been selected by a test to make up level B, right? And he says, in spite of our diversity, we stayed together for 6 months, studying and practicing in a peaceful, casual, and friendly relationship without any discrimination or social exclusion. What a beautiful example of living together. Thank you so much to our brave teachers for their sacrifices to help us all become future fluent speakers of the English language. And I just wanted to share that because here at the adult school, we have so much diversity and so much culture, and we do wrap our arms around each other. We're a true family. And it represents everything that our district says we do. And so congratulations to our ESL students. And the student who gave this speech today, his name is Patrick Duco, and what a wonderful celebration it was. So I did want to give homage to that. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Principal Martinez. Is there anyone else, Louis, online looking to speak during the PGUSD comments? Okay, with that, I'm going to move on to community members and Willow Magma, I hope that you're on and you are first in line. So please go ahead and comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, board. I'm a PG parent that recently reviewed the sex ed intended for the 7th graders. I would like to invite and encourage the general public to take this online program yourselves and thoroughly examine all the links provided as resources. Buck Rogman, the curriculum director, can provide you a link to the online course. This is an important and sensitive topic for minors. As such, it needs to be reviewed thoroughly by the school and parents prior to rolling it. The content I reviewed was both surprising and misleading. For the record, I am compelled to share that I'm not a religious person and I'm also an immigrant to this country. At the very beginning of the course, students must complete a survey of what they know about the topic. What is the purpose of this survey? What servers is this data being kept and for how long? Who is this information shared with? The animated cartoon videos point to troubles at home and narrow-minded parents incapable of understanding. To reemphasize, parents are not to be trusted. This leads to what trusted adult is, and it points to various online resources and chat rooms to seek an adult stranger to discuss sexual topics with. Another section regarding consent, which really means how to say yes, is misleading on the legal term of consent. California Penal Code 261.5 makes it a crime to have sexual intercourse with anyone under the age of 18. The law deems minors illegally incapable of consenting to sex with either adults or minors. No detail of this important legal code is explained to kids. Instead, how minors can consent or give permission to various sex acts is taught with different scenarios and circumstances. This gives minors the message that they can legally consent to various sexual acts. Our society steadily teaches kids to obey and therefore say yes. More emphasis and courage on the power of saying no is needed. The course cites many online resources, in which many are inappropriate for 7th graders. Links to scarletteen.com and other resources have explicit content and lead to unmonitored chat rooms, some answered by AI even. When doing a Google search for the provided term sex-ed4 life, the top search results link to pornography. These web links often provide health information that is more of a marketing ploy to other sites for sex toys and medical treatments. This lacks the medical completeness, and especially lacking are the consequences of such medical treatments. Another push on the resources is for telehealth, provided without a parent's knowledge. I urge the board, staff, curriculum director, and parents in particular to thoroughly examine the content for this important part of our kids' education and see if this is truly acceptable and age appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. And typically, we are not really, we don't really respond to comment, but we are able to make sure that you're connected with the proper staff person. And so it did sound like, and Willow, will you confirm, have you already been in contact with the director of curriculum, Buck Rogaman?
I have, I reached out to get the link so I could review the content.
Okay. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Do we have any other members of the public who would like to speak tonight? Please. Then when it turns green,
Okay,
is on.
I'm
Yes,
on.
there you are.
Hello, I'm a grandparent. So I've lived in PG for 36 years and my daughter graduated from PG High. So I have a 9 and a 5-year-old grandkids. And I took an interest in the same subject that Willow mentioned, the PG Middle School Sex Ed program through the Planned Parenthood program. It is my understanding an 8-hour video, and I watched a portion of it. So here's my takeaway. Planned Parenthood does not know what these children have experienced or know about sex, but they are assuming that they are already sexually active. If the latter is true, it is immoral they would never use that word, immoral. It is immoral to use a condom, not to use a condom, I'm sorry. It is also immoral to have sex if the child is drunk or high on drugs. And she must or he must give his or her consent. If all these conditions are met, condoms, pills, consent, no drugs or alcohol, sex is okay as far as Planned Parenthood is concerned. Forget about your parents. Planned Parenthood are adults you can trust and value. As I said, the word moral and immoral is never used in this program. They are only using the word value. Planned Parenthood wants to be the child's friend and confidant. One video shows a cartoon girl saying to her cartoon girlfriend that if my mother finds out I'm having sex, she will kill me and then she'll tell my father. The message here is clear. Do not trust or believe in things your parents tell you. They might be judgmental, i.e. moral. Planned Parenthood is at your side and we are compassionate. Planned Parenthood has values. Some critical thinking skills to ask might be, and we are trying to teach critical thinking skills to children, but some of them are not old enough to ask these questions. Where does a 12-year-old have sex? Is sex between 12 and 14-year-olds legal? And I think Willow brought this up a lot better than I did. Are drugs and alcohol among 12 and 14-year-olds legal? Planned Parenthood never asks these questions. Is sex between 12 and 14-year-olds legal or even desirable? Will this help them with stronger and more meaningful relationships in the future? Should moms and dads be more aware of what values Planned Parenthood is transmitting to their kids? So I think that parents need to be more involved. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Louis, do we have anyone else online, member of the community wanting to? Okay. And Louis, do you mind turning on my video for me? Do we have anyone else here in the public who would like to speak? Please go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Mike Gibbs and live here in Pacific Grove. I sent a email, I believe, to the board, and I'm on a different topic tonight to talk about the cannabis issue. Most of you know that the city of Pacific Grove a year or so ago passed an advisory referendum, Measure M and N. One dealt with the tax consequences and the other dealt with the operation of a cannabis shop here in Pacific Grove. So at the last city council meeting, these have come up. These two ordinances came up for discussion. And this discussion will continue for some time. And so I'm here tonight to just remind everybody that the cannabis issue is back. It's been an issue in not just in PG, but in other school districts on an ongoing basis. It's gotten worse with vapes and, the fentanyl issue. And you have Narcan for fentanyl. There is no antidote for a cannabis or THC overdose. There is not one. So in fact, a member of the city council recounted, and she's pro-cannabis, that her niece was rushed to the hospital with a cannabis overdose as a teenager. And so she's requesting that things like for the cannabis operation, there be a THC potency levels displayed, so you know what you're getting if you're going to buy it. It may be here. So what I'm here for tonight is simply to ask the school board, and I think this is your last meeting until August. I would request that this be taken up on the agenda, and I think President Swanson received this. And the three things I'm recommending is that school board talk about the distance. Right now, it's 1,000 feet. Asking that the school board get behind this and talk about 1,000-yard, distance between a school and a pot shop. Second, that a portion of this, the retail revenue, in this case, the tax revenue that the city will take in, be escrowed in favor of education here and mental health programs. So going back to the school district, some percentage of that revenue should come back here for education and mental health care, basically. And I'd like to have you all talk to city council about that. And third recommendation is a member of the Pacific Grove Unified School District staff, somebody that's concerned about this, be represented on an advisory council for the city of Pacific Grove as some of these things become more relevant in the operation of the pot shop, cannabis store, that the school district have a voice in how this is going to be rolled out, right? And I think it's really, really important. Just remember, please, that cannabis is the #1 drug-related cause of teen suicide in the United States, not fentanyl, it's cannabis, because I'm a psychologist, it rewires your brain and makes you crazy. I've seen it personally in hospitals where I worked and we had this issue. So just last thing is cannabis does not have an antidote. If you're carried to the hospital, you're screaming the whole way when you go. So I'd like you to get involved, and thank you for letting me go over for just a few seconds. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and Mr. Gibbs, your board item request was received, and it's the only one received since the last batch. And so we are actually we have a part of our agenda at the very end where we discuss future agenda items. And if we make it to the end tonight, which I do think we will, it's usually between about 9:30 and 10 p.m. I asked for your agenda item request to be printed out as a hard copy for all the trustees. It's in your blue folder. And so, so technically that is an item on the agenda, and we can discuss it as a board if we want to agendize your request. Okay. So that won't happen for a couple hours. All right. But I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad I was able to tell you that. So that's great. Okay. Louis, any other members of the public? And any other members of the public? And Buck, you're just standing. Okay. No problem. Thank you so much. Next up, we have a presentation, which is always really fun and informative. And we have a presentation tonight from our teacher on special assignment, sometimes called a TOSA. And this is from our TOSA at the PG Middle School, Bryce Gamble. So this will highlight your efforts this year and plans for next year. And this is in our packet too, if you want to follow along in a hard copy.
I promise this is
Oh, turn on your microphone. You got it.
I got it now. I promise this won't go too long. I know you all have a busy night. I promised Mr. Rogerman it would be under 10 minutes. I shared it with my friend and mentor, Mr. Binder, who suggested, hey, cut it in half and then cut it in half one more time. So
It is 7 o'clock. So if you want to wrap it up about 7:10, we're here for that.
I got you. I'm sorry. I've got this all. Everything's blocking it. I'll just do that. Okay, when I started this position, Mr. Roach had the forward thinking. I thought I was just going to be doing kind of triage, helping students get back on track after the COVID. We have a number of students that are struggling. Mr. Roach said, let's go in a different direction and you help the entire school. Okay, and wasn't sure exactly what that entailed. We had just done training last year, I believe with Mr. Rogerman and Dr. Porris's suggestions with UDL. And UDL, the big thing with that, Universal Design for Learning. There's, I am going to share this with all of you in a second, but if you click on this, it has hyperlinks and whatnot. But point of being, the question with UDL is how do you get students excited for school? Which is something we've all wondered for centuries now. And the biggest part with that is choice. So we all probably grew up with school, you sit in the desk, they talk at you, the end. Well, with UDL, you still have some of that, but like my friend, Mr. Enterline down here is doing in science, the students all have a choice on how they're going to do the assignment. So like this was one of his. After this big unit, he taught about geology. Students could either create a board game, they could create a children's book, they could make a podcast, or if they wanted something else, they could do that. And they knew where to come find me, and I would help them with any of that. So I pushed in with him that week. This is something that the English class did with narratives. They came up with hand-drawn graphics, which half the students did, And then this Canva, which we kind of stumbled on. One of the teachers was giving me credit for it. He didn't realize that actually he told me about it, Mr. Avedizian. And again, these are links you can do, but in Canva, we found that students could either make graphic novels like you can see with this, or they could even make videos. We found a way that you can make podcasts with it and things like that. So I kind of trained the staff in that, but the thing that we found the best was when teachers were learning from each other. At PG Middle, we have some of the best teachers in the galaxy. And what I started to learn to do was I would cover those teachers and then they would go to other classes. So that's Mrs. Fort. I took that picture, but you can't see it. There's 3 other core teachers behind us. And we watched her lead a Socratic seminar, which other teachers in history, we'd never used it. And other teachers started doing that, which is really beneficial with the students, because when they see it done in one class, they understand, or see it done in multiple classes, now they understand how to do it. And also, we told our students, we'll explain to your teacher how to do it, which students just, I thought they would do well with it, but they really thrived with it, teaching the teachers. And all of our teachers were really cool with learning all of that. We did staff-based learning platforms. So if you have children, you've heard of Quizlet, Kahoot, and Bluekit. Our younger teachers here, the ones up here who we call the Nuggets, they were the ones that were really into it. Old teachers like me who had been there for 18 years were like, yeah. And then as you can see, our staff was freaking out and cheating to like win the game and rushing through it. But we had teachers teaching the staff doing that. Same with this one. Project-based learning. It's an old idea, but we have this outstanding teacher, Ms. Hooper, who is teaching the rest of the class how she did a board game. We've been doing board games since I was growing up in PG, but she has a lot better checkpoints that she's been implementing with it. So the students wouldn't fall too far, as I throw the mic around, the students wouldn't fall too far behind. And so the teachers really learn amazingly well from each other. And basically I learned all I had to do was just point teachers to other teachers or beg those teachers to present at staff meetings. This is the other big part with UDL. So with this cartoon, exclusion, this child's being left out. Well, you can build them up, which we would do a lot of the times. We would, in history class, we'd come up an assignment and a student that's struggling or a student that, has a learning issue, we would say, all right, well, we'll just cut the work in half. But like this, if we could get those resource teachers to help build the lessons from the ground floor, you have that. You have a chain link fence that they can look through. And that's what we started doing. This is an English department meeting. That's Kathy Wheeler, who's a resource teacher. She's sitting right there, helping them build the lessons. So there is no, for the struggling students, this is how they'll do it. We're building a lesson. What's the outcome together as a department? And then, all right, so to reach all of the students, to reach every single type of learner, what are we going to do? So there's not that modification for the student that I was labeled a resource student that, okay, well, here's what you're going to do. Here's your crutch. No, there is no crutch. They don't need it. This is by the end of the year, the English 8th grade. This is their assignment that they made with the Holocaust unit. It was done for decades, one single way. But if you look at this, there's multiple different ways they can do it. They can make videos, they can make presentations. Part of the great thing with this, and Mr. Binder, everything that he's created for the staff is like we have Screencastify. So we had a lot of nervous students coming back from the quarantine that to get them to speak in front of the class, they would just take an absence. Well, we would work with them on how to build or how to record themselves talking. I would record them if they wanted to. We found ways to make funny animations during it if they wanted to, so they can kind of baby steps coming back, standing in front of people talking. Rubrics, we did a lot of work with rubrics. We started trying to use rubrics at PG Middle. Do you have any idea what year that was, Mr. Rogeman? Yeah, it was like 2000, 2008, 2000. It was when Mr. Rogeman came, and this one teacher, myself and Ms. Silva, we got up and we talked to the staff about it, and everyone said, so you're trying to create one staff. And then I ducked and ran away and let Mr. Rogeman deal with the rest of that. This is kind of the PG Middle rubric that we have, and it was it's taken pretty well in that departments are taking that, but they switch it to how they want it. So when students look at that rubric, it's all the rubrics are starting to look very familiar. So it's not new. This was actually the Spanish teacher and I worked with this one. This is a daily check-in with emojis and just to see how you're doing. Other teachers found that one and started copying it. I would love to take credit for it and say I built that and pushed it out. He's such a popular and cool teacher. They went to him to find the thing that he and I worked on, but whatever. It's not a popularity contest. And then the other part that I really love this year is that Andrew Bradley that works with Mr. Binder at the elementaries. He and I got to work together with this with CS First. And we went down, Ms. Dempsey over in Forest Grove let us into her classroom. And so we built a unit. I'm a history teacher. I've been a US history teacher for 18 years and the 5th grade curriculum is the same. So what we're going to do with that, it was so successful is our hope is like, well, let me just show you the lesson. Students came up with a real character that they've been reading about and they made CS First. So they created a little video with that. And this character, you have the link in here, but these characters are kind of talking and it's animated and all that. Well, what they're going to do is in 8th grade, they'll build on that unit and then so forth and so forth. So we'll have these ideas with this one thing that they're creating. Next year, when I get to see all of the 6th graders, we're going to start building that and then they'll build it again in 8th grade. So they'll just keep piling on this one lesson. So that's what I've been doing with that. Are there any questions or anything I can answer with this? I would.
Oh, it's a really great presentation.
Thank
I
you.
would say you were quite entertaining to watch, but also very effective. So thank you for bringing that energy here. Trustee Dr. Hazen, do you want to start?
Yeah, just thank you very much for the presentation. I do have
Of course.
some reports from the inside that apparently your dad jokes were very appreciated.
Why are they dad jokes? I always get that. I had a student last year that they made that joke, dad jokes, and I was like, "That's not a dad joke. That's an awesome joke." And then they were like, "Are you going to start crying?" And I was like, "No."
Middle schoolers.
In addition to Canva, I heard that was really well taken and appreciated. And so I think that's something I'm really excited to see, those kind of alternative ways of bringing in tools to the classroom. So I encourage more of that. And thank you for
That's
helping
awesome. Thank you.
champion it.
Yeah, Canva was this one's been edited. You'll have the longer one, but the Canva, you can see the some of the ads they made in English. English was especially amazing with it. They really took it, ran.
Clerk McNary.
You are really fun to listen to as a presenter, so thank you. I love hearing how you're meeting all of the students where they're at.
Yeah.
And the collaboration piece between the teachers, it really sounds like it's been like a learning journey for everybody. And I love that you're incorporating things like Canva into the English lesson because it's crossing different skills and sets that kids can learn and finding things that everyone can be good at. I hope we get to keep it. I don't know how long the TOSA gets to stay with us, but I hope we get to keep you around in this role for a long time. I think it's really beneficial for all of our students.
Thank you. Yeah, if the teachers were teasing me the last day of school and calling me Red, that they were like, do you want to keep this position? Part of me is, I miss the students. I miss getting to be, so when they let me into classrooms, some of the times the teacher was like, okay, go away. But it is a very important role. I would love to say like I hit the ground floor doing that. I didn't. I really went to all the teachers and tried to do it one-on-one at first. And that didn't take. So I found by the end of the year, I really know where we're going to go with it next year. I sat in Mr. Devani and Roach's office the other day until they were like, okay, we have work to do. Talking about how excited we are for next year, where we're going to go with it. So we're going to hit it a lot more with that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to hear too, as an incoming middle school parent, what you're doing. So thank you.
Trustee Otmar.
I can second or third. You were great to listen to and thank you. And I have in my note here, after I went through this presentation, it just says, yay, Mr. Gamble, with an exclamation point. This is so cool what you're doing. I think it's great how you're meeting the students where they're at academically and really respecting how they retain information. I think that's so cool. And I love the collaboration of staff, project-based learning. I mean, the whole thing is just epic. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Trustee Brian Swanson.
first, one quick question. How long have we had you now? How long have you,
I had to do
Rates
the math.
our
I thought it
district.
was my 17th and it's my 18th.
which is
I
amazing?
finished my 18th year this year.
Because both my daughters had you and really enjoyed you. You are our resident comedian.
Oh, thank you.
And we're lucky to have you. But what you're doing beyond that too, it's like, and they're not dad jokes, they're just good jokes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Says the dad too.
I'll be emailing Mr. Hayes instead.
What'd you say?
Um,
Did you say I thought they were really funny?
I thought it really funny.
Oh, there it is. Well done.
So
I'm
much.
done.
It's so much.
I mean, I remember the first time I saw you present at the middle school, and you were just so funny and great. But you do more than that. You're more than just being funny. It's like you're reaching the students through that too, and you're relatable. And then we see this presentation, which is great. I'm so grateful that we have you where we have you right now too. You're a tremendous asset. So thank you so much for the presentation. And thank you for circling around the block a month or two ago and finding me when I was out walking the dog. I really appreciated that too. It was nice to connect with you.
Likewise. It was great.
Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Roach would like to say something. So I'm going to take a break from the board comments for a moment.
Good evening, everyone. Sean Roach, proud principal of Pacific Grove Middle School, and Bryce Gamble is definitely a hard act to follow, but he really could have taken 35 or 40 minutes easily with what he's accomplished with really kind of supporting equity-based strategy and supporting peer observation. But I think really what the big thing is that he's really supported growing a staff of folks who are not scared of trying things. That's a tough thing for a teacher to do, is kind of go outside their comfort zone and try something new. And I think he's been instrumental in supporting that vulnerability that I think we all need to grow as educators, and creating an environment where we trust one another, we learn from one another, we share best practices, because I think that really makes us all better. So I could not pick a better guy for this position. He did a wonderful job of connecting individually, but then when that groundswell became apparent, we began to kind of look at things as an entire staff. And so we did wonderful work this year. Kudos to you, Mr. Gamble, but I'm really looking forward to great things next year. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And so I just had a couple questions and comments. So Dr. Portis or Josh Jordan, will you just give us a quick TOSA overview of the program? I think we're maybe 2/3 or more into it. And so kind of let us know.
Yeah, initially it was 3-year one-time funding cycle, and it sunsets the June of 2024. So this is our last year.
Okay. And it sounds like a lot of what you're doing, it reminds me of what an inclusion specialist would do. So good job threading in a resource teacher who is trained in special education, because that's a really smart person to have on the team.
That was Mr. Roach.
Amazing.
That I'd love to take credit for that, but that was Mr. Roach. But then we just got it. I would go and set it up that we would always have a resource teacher.
Incredible.
And I would, to be honest, I would talk with them beforehand and say, okay, what do we need to see on here?
You seem very humble and like you know what you know and what you don't know, and you're willing to ask for help, and that's really cool.
Thank you.
And so we have a TOSA at the middle school. We also have a TOSA at the high school, or has that program sunsetted now? Still going?
It's still going.
And who is our TOSA at the high school now?
Well, Dr. Hagquist.
And who is it now? Stephanie Alvarez. Okay. And then just for program wise, the TOSAs have such valuable information and you're gathering so much data. So then are the TOSAs just underneath the principal, or do they also work with the director of curriculum or somebody else to kind of tie that all together? You don't have to answer that, Bryce, if you don't know.
I work a lot with Mr. Binder.
You work with Mr. Binder, okay.
Or I harass him or Mr. Bradley at least 3 times a week about how to do tech, and then we work well with that. But also Mr. Rogaman and I have met, and he is really kind and includes me on a number of the things that I get to know what's going on.
Great. And do we as a district have a plan to kind of value the data that's been garnered from this incredible 3 years at the end of it and kind of implement it? Or is that something that would fall under Director Rogaman, or what are we What's our plan for that? Because this is gold nuggets right here.
I
so.
think they're absolutely, Director Rogerman's been working with the team and making sure, seeing how the data is going, watching the progression. I mean, we're absolutely seeing an accelerated progression of the work that the TOSAs are doing. You know, I think once we got our feet underneath us, generally speaking, it's really just been ramping up. So we're absolutely collecting the data that we're seeing how it's working through. And because we know also that it's, it was a limited time. So
Yeah.
if there's going to be any continuation of it, we want to make sure to have
Okay.
the data we need to go forward.
Do you all have tickled in your calendar to bring back to the board kind of the post report of once these positions sunset and let us know like what's going to be folded in? Because I would value that as a board member to hear. The rest.
I don't know if it's tickled in, but we
Will
certainly.
you tickle it in?
Yeah. But I did Dr. Rogan, I'll certainly have it on its notes there for sure.
Okay, I'm making a note to follow up and ask then if it can be tickled in too. Okay, thank you so much. We're gonna go out to the public and see if they have any comments. Louis, anyone online wanting to comment?
I was like waiting for more dad jokes. Dad comments. I was like,
Anyone in public want to come up and talk about the program or talk about Bryce or talk about, please?
we don't
Dr.
need to
Binder.
talk about.
Yeah.
Can I request?
Yeah. Okay, Director Binder making his way.
One of the things that I wanted to point out, and Mr. Roach spoke to this a little bit, but Bryce is a trusted, known quantity at the middle school, obviously because he has historical knowledge of the place and he's been there so long. But the staff really connects with him so well. They can go to him for anything. I've seen this firsthand. And whatever he is unsure of, because he is essentially interfacing with us, Mr. Rogerman, myself, on a regular basis throughout each week of the school year, it just makes things move so much more efficiently. Things get resolved so much more quickly. And so he spoke a lot about supporting students, but really he is just an asset to supporting the staff there. And if you polled the staff, you would get a resounding approval of what he's done this year. There's no question about it. So just wanted to point that out.
Thank you so much. We're gonna wrap up. Oh, go ahead, Director Rogan.
Just quickly, I know a question was kind of asked about the overall integration of the growth that we've had and how we're going to maintain that. I think that one of the things that becomes really clear when you hear Mr. Gamble talk about the program that he's teaching is that it's intricately tied to the equity work that we're doing. When you look at something like universal design for learning or having resource staff present in department meetings, those are the kind of steps that are going to increase the inclusion of all students and increase the quality of the education that they experience. And when you look at the high school and their focus on grading for equity and the work that Dr. Hagquist did with the staff under the leadership of Principal Garcia, that also is very much an equity-driven endeavor at the high school. So that's kind of the umbrella under which these professional development movements are occurring. And it's all kind of part of that systematic approach into us knocking down the barriers that might stand in the way of students being able to access the content that they're learning. So that's kind of the big picture. And I'm excited to sit and talk with Mr. Gamble over the summer and see what he's dreaming up for next year, because based on what we saw last year, it's going to be good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Director Davies, I see your hand up online.
Thank you. I think it's important to mention that the new TOSA at the high school is Dr. Stephanie Alvarez.
Oh, thank you.
And she is a special education teacher. And she was an inclusion specialist for her last school district.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Before we swept her away.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Davies, for that information. Super valuable. Made my night. Thank you.
I just had one quick request.
Please.
If we could just get just one dad joke. You just close the dad joke.
That's
That's what I've heard. They aren't dad jokes.
I feel like I dropped the ball. I feel like I got that of like people coming up at parties being like, oh, I heard you're funny. Say something funny. And I just every time just.
I'll get the dad joke from
Thank you,
Elliot.
thank you.
It's fine.
It might come to you later. You can come up during public comment for any item.
Perfect.
Sure. Thanks so much.
Madam
Thank
President.
you for being in our district. Yes, go ahead.
May I make one comment if I may? going to take the liberty of it and
You mind if
possibly
I-
embarrass them. But there was one other aspect, having been a middle school teacher myself and now having a child at the middle school. I think one of the pieces that wasn't mentioned about Mr. Gamble, and I think is really important. Mr. Gamble models respect and respectability. So I grew up with my father expecting that I respect people, show respect for people in the way that I act and the way that I behave. And it's so clear that Mr. Gamble is in the same fashion. He's always very respectful to people around him. He's always been very respectful to me, but I watch his behaviors with the adults around him, and the students watch him. And so I know that our students are able to watch how he interacts, how he behaves, how he speaks. And amidst all the humor and the fun time, they're also watching watching a man, a gentleman, behave well with his colleagues around him, watching a human treat other humans kindly. And that's, you just can't quantify that truly. So I wanted to just add that in there as well, because it's something that I know he won't speak to himself, but it's something that I've noticed over the years. And so I appreciate him in this position because I know our middle schoolers who need this are getting it. So it's pretty impressive to watch. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, great way to start off the night. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, okay. All right, so moving on, it's 7:23. So even without beautiful presentation and all of our discussion, we're right on target. So thank you. Good job, good job. We're moving on to the consent agenda. I'd like to pull consent C. I'm going to go around and ask if board members would like to pull anything else. Clerk McNary.
I have no items to pull.
Okay, trustee Otmar.
Can you come back to me, please?
Yes, trustee Brian Swanson.
Nope, all good, thank you.
All good. Okay, myself, I already said C. Trustee Dr. Hazen.
No items for me. Thank you.
Okay, trustee Otmar, was that enough time?
I'm okay. I'm pulling nothing.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'd like to pull classified assignment order number 18, which is item C. The rest of the items on consent, there's actually like a perfect alphabet from A to Z items on here. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. Another lucky part of this magical meeting, I guess. So anyways, if I can get a motion.
I'm gonna move to approve consent with the removal of item C.
And I'll second that. So a motion made by trustee Brian Swanson, seconded by Carolyn Swanson. Do we need to do a roll call or can we do a majority on that one?
Majority is fine.
Majority vote, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously. So we're gonna put C. We're just gonna call it pulled consent C, and we're just gonna plug it in right before action discussion. If that's agreeable to everybody, I saw everybody nodding their head. Okay, so I pulled item C actually because I just wanted, we have some really excellent folks who are gonna come as long as this item is approved. And I come to the district and assist in some areas related to payroll and finance and on the fiscal team. And so I just wanted to give an opportunity for Joshua Jordan, if you're okay with that, to just kind of lay out. There's a individual, Gary Bosom and Karen Deller, that are on this order that are showing that they'll come as itinerant substitutes. Can you just tell us?
Absolutely, yes, I can speak to that. So both Mr. Bosom, who was the prior Associate Superintendent CBO for Monterey County Office of Education, and Karen Deller, who was the Director of External Services. External Services oversees all district finances for the county. I worked with both of them for some time, and with the changes coming up with the resignation of our good friend, Dr. Porras here, and some additional duties assigned to me, I felt like it was a good time to bring in some support in certain areas. And the support is more specific to project related areas for the summertime. I know that everybody leaves for the summer and it's, people think it slows down in the summertime for schools. Well, we are attempting to close the books, prepare a 45-day revision and start working on our unaudited actuals. So myself and the fiscal director will be working intimately on that. But there's a number of projects, and I can list them for you today, that we plan to have these two retirees work with us on, because they're experts in these areas. Number one, we're looking at having support in position control reconciliation. Anything from reconciling vacancies, adding health and welfare budgeting associated with vacancies, which has not been done in the past. And then reconciling position control against current assignments. I wanted to have them create a table for grant resource renewal, both state and federal. A lot of our grants that we receive we receive them through our P2, P1 apportionments, but there's a lot of other grants that the district would receive based on applications. And we don't have a timetable or a table for those grants for state and federal. So I'm going to have them develop that table for us. And then we'll take that table and plug it into our calendar. Cleanup of chart of accounts and tying our escape and chart of accounts into the LCAP. One of the things that we noticed this year when we were going through the LCAP, it was extremely difficult to parse out the dollars associated with each measure because the way those expenditures were set up in escape were not tied to, say, a goal or a management code. And I'm not going to get too geeky on you with SACS coding, but there's a way to set this up to where it's a very simple way to look at our expenditures and track them for the LCAP. So that's another project. Support with unaudited actuals and restricted sources tied to positions. So we're going to be looking at, I'm going to have them look at all of our restricted resources right now, the one-time or the ending funds, some of which we just spoke about related to TOSAs. And I'm going to have them help me make recommendations to this body as to what we're going to look at moving forward. Should we continue to fund these positions out of the general fund? Are we looking to apply for additional grants to fund these positions? Or if there's no more one-time funding available, what are we going to do? So they're going to look at that for us too. In a nutshell, that's really what it is they're going to be doing for us. 1 day a week for Gary Bossum and every other week for 2 days with Karen Deller. They're, like I said, I've worked with both of them for over 14 years, phenomenal folks. And I think we'd be lucky to have them here to just put another set of eyes on what's been going on within the fiscal department.
Thank you so much. Let's go around quickly, see if any board members have comments. Trustee Dr. Hazen, I'm sorry, Clerk McNary.
No, thank you for the additional info.
Trustee Otmar.
No, nothing. I appreciate all the information in depth. I really appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Trustee Brian Swanson.
Real quick, you're burning through some of this information that, and some of it was new. What are P2 and P1 apportionments?
Right. So it's the first part of the year, and then the second part of the year where our ADA is uploaded to the state, and that's when we receive our apportionment. So
okay,
the beginning of the year or the fall, P2 in the spring, it's when we receive our principal apportionments from California Department of Ed.
Right. Thank you. Still deciphering the code.
Yeah.
After all these years.
A lot of acronyms.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
I had to Google GASB today. When I was, a GASB is how you say it. Okay, I say GASB. Okay, I don't have any questions, but I do appreciate it. And I guess like one comment I have is I'm thankful for the relationship, the warm relationship it seems that you have with these folks. And I think that if they're coming a little bit out of retirement to come and help us, it kind of showcases their trust in you. And so please thank them for us, because I don't know if I would give up my retirement to come and help out a district. So please thank them. And Trustee Dr. Hazen, please go ahead.
Yeah, just quickly, I can only imagine the help you will need in the filling multiple seats. So I'm very excited you're bringing this forth to us. I'm happy to move forward with it.
Yes, absolutely. Such a special skill. So I'm going to go out to the public really quickly, and then we'll come back for a vote on this one really quick. So nobody online looking to comment. I don't see anyone here in public moving up towards the podium. And so with that, can I get a motion on this item? I'll second. Motion made by Trustee Brian Swanson, seconded by Trustee Carolyn Swanson. No relation. Majority vote, please, Mandy.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. Moving on now to action discussion. So action discussion A is the first one is resolution number 1108, recognizing June 19th, 2023 as Juneteenth in the Pacific Grove Unified School District. And this is being recommended by by our staff. Joshua Jordan, your name is on this, but do we have a trustee who would like to present this, or Joshua Jordan, would you like to? Whatever you wish.
I'll go for it.
Okay, please.
I actually requested this agenda item, so that makes sense. This would be, I believe, the first year that our district would be recognizing Juneteenth. And I think we've kind of gone over our role as policymakers and kind of the leg of the district that communicates what we value to the community. And I think this is one way we can communicate another group of our community that we value. I guess a couple of the important provisions were that working with the community, the Board of Education is committed to identifying actionable items to improve policies and procedures, to improve access to opportunities that ensure that the student's family and staff do not experience inequities in the schools of Pacific Grove Unified School District. So I hope you all will approve it in this evening.
Thank you, Clerk McNary. And this is a resolution. And so before you all leave tonight, if we do approve it, please sign it in person so that we can make Mandy's life just a little less hectic trying to chase us down. So signatures needed. And board, I'll go around and see if anyone has any comments. I'll start with Trustee Otmar.
Thank you for bringing this. It's very important and I'm really glad to see this here. So heartfelt thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Otmar. Trustee Brian Swanson.
Absolutely. I'll echo that. Thank you for bringing it. It's important that we do it, and I'm glad that it's on the agenda for tonight. So yeah, absolutely 100%.
Thank you. And Trustee Dr. Hazen.
Nothing to add that hasn't been said. So happy to approve it tonight.
Okay. And Clerk McNary, you presented it. Was there anything further that you wanted to add on it? Okay. Lewis, is there anyone in the online sphere that would like to come? Oh, wonderful. Okay. Claire Davies, please go ahead.
Thank you very, very much for formally adopting this for our beautiful district. I just want to say that we did take a Juneteenth holiday last summer for summer school. We were a little bit ahead, but we did do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Davies. Anyone else online or here in public, you're warmly welcomed to come and comment about anything. Well, I guess about this agenda item for right now. Nobody, I'm seeing no one. And board, do you have any further comments on this item? No. Okay. Can we get, this is a roll call vote, so we just need a motion and a second, and then we'll do a roll call vote. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to adopt the resolution recognizing Juneteenth.
And I'll second it. So motion made by Clerk McNary, seconded by Trustee Carolyn Swanson. Roll call vote, please.
President Swanson,
Aye.
Clerk McNary,
Aye.
Dr. Hazen,
Aye.
Trustee Otmar,
Aye.
Trustee Swanson.
Hi.
Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously. Moving on now to action discussion item B, which is
I'm sorry.
what?
Just a
Yes.
thing. Clerk McNary, do you have any interest in reading the resolution before we move on? I think it could be nice. Sure. I think it's worth that. If that's okay. Sorry to interject, but it's a good one.
Okay.
If you wish, sure.
Pacific Grove Unified School District Board of Education Resolution number 1108, recognizing June 19th, 2023 as Juneteenth in the Pacific Grove Unified School District. Whereas June 19 is the time that many in our nation recognize Juneteenth as the holiday that celebrates Emancipation Day, the day in history when the last state ratified the Emancipation Proclamation. And whereas this date marks the time period where African Americans of Texas received notice from President Lincoln that slavery has been abolished, a declaration that was codified in the 13th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America. And whereas June 19 also marks the day that African Americans in the southern states exercised independence from those who benefited from their labors in the founding of this nation. And whereas the journey of African Americans represents both great achievements and great hardships. And whereas our nation is currently witnessing the injustice of the African American journey that have existed for far too long, This June 19 celebration weighs heavily on our hearts and on our minds as many African Americans continually are not treated equally under the law. And whereas the pain and anguish displayed on our national stage developed from generations of systemic racism, that impacts our students, families, staff, and communities. And whereas the educational institutions of this nation, including Pacific Grove Unified School District, has a particular responsibility to recognize the painful realities of our history and to make sure that our curriculum reflects these realities. And whereas working with the community, the Board of Education of the Pacific Grove Unified School District is committed to identifying actionable items to improve policies and procedures, to improve access to opportunities, to ensure students, families, and staff do not experience inequities in the schools of the Pacific Grove Unified School District. And whereas we value diversity and are united in our opposition to racism and hate, we stand in solidarity with our African American students, educators, staff, and their families. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Pacific Grove Unified School District hereby officially commemorates Juneteenth as a day to celebrate and emphasize a collective call to action against injustice of any kind. Passed and adopted by the board on this first day of June.
Thank you. And so since we did pass that, please everyone remember to sign it before you leave tonight, okay? Okay, moving on to action discussion B, the 23-24 adopted budget is the next item. Joshua Jordan?
Thank you, President Carolyn. You have a pretty substantive cover sheet here. I'm not going to give a presentation similar to that of the public hearing. The only thing to note on the second page is that no changes were made to this budget included within the governor's May revision. We're going to address that at the 45-day revision. So this budget that I'm presenting today is the same budget that we presented on May 18th during the public hearing. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Thank you so much. Trustee Brian Swanson, anything?
Nothing here. Thank you.
I don't have anything that would prevent me from voting on this in favor of it. So trustee Dr. Hazen,
Nope. Thanks again for bringing it back up.
clerk McNary,
No.
trustee Otmar.
I'm good. No, thank you.
Thank you. We'll go out to the public. Louis, sorry, Louis, we have anyone online? Thank you. And is there anyone here in person who would like to come up to the podium and speak on this item? Once again, this is our 23-24 school year adopted budget. Okay. And I'm not seeing anyone on the board wanting to make any further comments either. So on this one, can we please get a majority vote? Mandy, if you're there.
Yeah, did I miss? I'm sorry, I think I missed the motion. Did I?
No, I missed it. Thank you so much. Can we get a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to adopt the 23-24 budget.
I'll second.
Excellent. Motion made by clerk McNary, seconded by trustee Otmar. Mandy, thank you so much for correcting my error. A majority vote now, please.
No problem. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to action item C, the Pacific Grove Unified School District Local Control and Accountability Plan. This is an item that we also had up for public hearing at our last meeting. And so we're gonna go around and see if board members have any questions or comments. Director Rubin, did you want to say something?
No, if
You're
the
just
board
here
has
if we need
questions,
you.
I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, no problem. Thank you for coming up. I do not have any questions. Trustee Dr. Hazen, do you?
Nope, no questions for me. Thank you.
Clerk McNary?
No questions, and thank you for outlining what the updates were for the board.
Sure.
Trustee Otmar?
No questions for me.
Trustee Brian Swanson.
No, we're all good. I think, thank you again. It's like I like boned up on it last week and I thought we were gonna have to vote on it last week. So I was like digging into it. It's like, oh, we're not actually voting on it. It's like, I'm gonna save it up. So I'm good. Thank you.
Too funny. Okay, any public comment on this item? Once again, this is the PGUSD Local Control and Accountability Plan that we're voting on. I don't see anyone online looking to comment. Lewis doesn't either. Buck, do you have any final comments?
No, just I keep working with Dr. Ramirez from the Monterey County Office of Education, just to make sure that all the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed, and the county approval should come by the end of the month.
And she seemed really thorough, or they seemed really thorough in their review. That was really cool to see. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. Is she new or just maybe fresh eyes?
No, she's that it's no, that she's been doing this for a while, and
Wow.
so it was great for me to sit down, and be with her for about an hour and a half and just kind of garner that expertise for the precision with which
Okay.
that they look through our plan. It's
So perhaps
great
it
to
was
know.
you being patient to sit with her and really hear what she had to say. So thank you so much for that. It
Sure.
seemed like it really tightened up that document.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Better every year, right? That's all we can hope for.
That's all we can hope for.
Everything better
That's
every
right.
year. Okay, still seeing no one in the public arena who would like to comment. I'm just going to glance back at the trustees and see if anyone has anything they'd like to share. Dr. Portis? No? Josh Jordan? No. Okay. With that, can we get a motion? Silence. Okay, I'll make the motion.
And I will second it.
So I'll make the motion on staff's recommendation. So, and Elliot, you seconded. Okay, so motion made by trustee Carolyn Swanson, seconded by trustee Dr. Hazen. Mandy, majority vote, please.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. We're moving right along here. It's only 7:43, and at this point, I thought we might be as far along as 8:10. So I think we're really going to finish tonight by 10 o'clock, if not a little sooner. So item D is local performance indicators for the California dashboard. This is also Director Rogaman item. So did you have anything you wanted to present on this?
Yes, I thought I would go through the slides so that the public can see some of the data that's going to get posted on the dashboard. If they do search the dashboard for Pacific Grove Unified School District. One of the things that is important to note is that there is data that the state gathers through the testing that we do. And then there's also things that we need to report out to the state, where we do a self-evaluation of our programs and post them on the dashboard. So the public has the information about some of the state priorities. So the first slide just kind of, explains a little bit about the dashboard, and that this is going to be locally collected data by PGUSD. The local indicators are a part of a seamless accountability system. And there are some of the bullet points there. There's an emphasis on local control. Also, it enables the LEAs for us to be able to measure our progress using our local data toward these priorities that we have from the state. It also gives valuable information to our educational partners, as they can log on and find out some information about our schools and our district. And some of this data also informs the local control and accountability planning process. So when you look at the priorities that we're going to have assessed in these local indicators, the first one is has to do with appropriately assigned teachers, access to curriculum aligned instructional materials, and safe, clean, and functional school facilities. As a district, based on the rating rubrics that were given from the state, we have 0% of the misassignments of teachers, of English learners, and the total teacher misassignments and vacant teacher positions. Then we also have 0% with the number or percentage of students without access to their own copies of our standards aligned instructional materials, and all of the facilities that we have at our school fall under the definition of good repair in the district. So I know that we have a lot of, improvements that are happening throughout the district. However, when you look at the rating that we use for the school accountability report cards, that our schools are in good repair. The self-reflection tool for implementation of state and academic standards. The first one talks about rating the local educational agency's progress in providing professional learning for teachers to the recently adopted academic standards. And so as far as our English language arts go, we feel like we've reached the level of full implementation of the PD that's associated with that. As far as English language development, the kind of strategies that are used with our English language learners in order to access program, we feel like we're at full implementation, but there's always work that needs to be done to shore that up with our English learners as a priority group for us. And there results in our data showing that there is a learning gap. We want to make sure that we're still working to improve that area of our educational and professional development program. Yes.
Can I ask a quick clarifying question? So for this slide in particular, the self-reflection tool, so who's giving this data?
So the data comes from the conversations that we have with our site staff. Ultimately, it's me as the director of the curriculum and special projects to oversee the program for the district and then report out onto the dashboard.
And is it safe to assume like on priority 3 family engagement, et cetera, and going out throughout the document that that's kind of how the data is kind of trickled up to you from staff, PGUSD staff?
Correct. It's
And
from
faculty?
multiple sources. It's basically from all of the educational partners that we have. So some of the data, some of the feedback that we've gotten through our formal parent meetings is going to be reflected in our ratings here, but it's also done through the daily site visits that I've made and the conversations that I've had with the principals. It's the knowledge of the programs like what Mr. Gamble is doing at the middle school. It's reflective of the overall picture of the district in each of the different areas that we're going to report out on.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Sure. And so if you look at the mathematics, we rated as full implementation and sustainability in terms of the program that we're running in the district. And then the next generation science standards, we have full implementation. We didn't mark the sustainability on that because quite frankly, coming out of COVID, the primary emphasis of the district has been on English language arts and math, especially at the elementary level. So there is still some room for growth at the elementary schools for the implementation of the next generation science standards. We have a science program that's in place, but I think that the emphasis has been, like I said, on the mathematics and English language arts. History and social science with the adoption of our new curriculum last year. I think we can look at that as full implementation and sustainability. When we look at our next slide, this is going to be the self-reflection tool for the state academic standards. So here we're going to rate our progress in making instructional materials that are aligned to recently adopted academic standards available for our students. So when you look at English language arts and our alignment to the Common Core state standards for English language arts, we have full implementation and sustainability, as well as all the other categories that are listed there for English language development, mathematics, our next gen science standards, as well as history and social science. When we rate our performance in areas where we can improve in delivering instruction aligned to the recently adopted frameworks. All of these are full implementation, but we look at areas where we can improve because we're always working to get better with regard to the staff support that we're able to offer in each one of these areas. So when we adopt a new textbook, we try to have in place an opportunity for staff to be able to plan to implement that textbook. And then we always are looking for opportunities for staff to increase their ability in the different areas that they teach with professional development opportunities that are offered either throughout the county or the ones that we bring into the district. The next tool is talking about implementation of our academic standards. We're looking at rating the progress that we've made in implementing each of the following academic standards adopted by the State Board of Education for all students. So when we're looking at CTE, we've got full implementation and sustainability of the CTE pathways at the high school. Our health education content standards, we are meeting the requirements that the state has, and we have a program that is sustainable there. The PE model curriculum standards, we have full implementation and sustainability there, as well as with world language and visual and performing arts. Okay, we're looking at the activities of teachers and school administrators during the prior school year. And when we identify the professional learning needs of groups of teachers or the staff as a whole, we have full implementation in that we've got the contracted days for our professional development for our staff. I think when we'll look at full implementation and sustainability is when we are, extending this not only to our teachers, but to the classified staff as well. I think when you see the professional development that we have planned for August 4th, it's going to include our classified staff. So we look at broadening that range of professional development for district staff as a whole. With regard to identifying the learning needs of the individual teachers, that is done with the assistance of our site admin to work with the teachers and identify areas where they feel like they could use some professional development, and then we try to align them with opportunities there. Okay, the priority 3, when we're talking about our family in engagement. We're looking at our current strengths and progress in this area, and then also identifying focus areas for improvement, and including how we can improve the engagement of our underrepresented families. So this has been a priority for the district this year, and in years past. But our focus is trying to increase not only the outreach, but the participation of parents in the different meetings that we have, and doing them in different ways so that we can increase that level of participation. First one talks about that ability to build trusting and respectful relationships with families. We rated ourselves as full implementation and sustainability, and the progress in creating welcoming environments for all families in the community, also rated as full implementation and sustainability. Where we did full implementation and feel like there's room for growth is the progress in supporting staff to learn about each family's strengths, culture, languages, and goals for their children. Helping our staff to identify ways where we can begin to identify those individual needs and meet those for our families. And then also looking at the progress of developing multiple opportunities for the district and school sites to engage in two-way communication with families and educators, and using language that is understandable and accessible to families. We've made growth in that area with the language line contract that we signed this year, as well as having an open line of communication with families when they need specific interpretation for events at school, and then also having both the fast translation services and language line available for specific languages for parent conferences as well. Okay, the next one, talking about family engagement, is building partnerships for student outcomes. So when we're talking about trying to provide professional learning and support for teachers and principals to improve a school's capacity to partner with families, we feel like there's full implementation in our efforts to partner with families, and yet that's an area that we would like to see ourselves improve in even more. Sorry, its initial implementation was the rating for that aspect. And then when we look at rating the progress in providing families with information and resources to support student learning and development in the home, we feel like we're still at the initial phase of the implementation there. I think that what you'll see is these rating scales are reflective of, kind of where we are and where we hope to be. And so I think that those two areas are areas where we felt like we could put some focus on and improve for the following year. When you look at rating the progress of implementing policies and programs for teachers to meet with families and students to discuss student progress and ways to work together to support improved student outcomes, we put that at full implementation because of the robust intervention programs that we have at the elementary level, and how we work with parents during conferences to help them understand where their students are and how their students can grow. When we look at rating the progress in supporting families to understand and exercise their legal rights and advocate for their own students and all students, we rated ourselves at full implementation there. that information is available to parents. And when we think parents might need specific information, I know that the administration reaches out so that parents are available of the resources and the rights that they have. Looking at the next area, family in engagement. We're going to look at the current strengths and progress and identify focus area for improvement with regard to building the capacity and supporting principals and staff to effectively engage families in ed advisory groups and with decision making. The school site councils remain the primary formal group that works to do this with our site leadership. The parent teacher associations at our schools also have an impact here. When we look at rating the progress and building the capacity and supporting family members to effectively engage in advisory groups and decision making, we put ourselves as initial implementation. An area where we can provide a little bit of growth there is helping to maybe provide some training to those groups, whether it's the PTAs or the school site councils, in how to most effectively engage in the decision making and advising how the school is run. Also looking at opportunities to provide input on policies and programs, implementing strategies to reach and seek input from any underrepresented groups in the school community. We've got full implementation there with our ELAC committees, also with our parent ed advisory group, with the local control accountability plan, and having diverse groups represented in those formal groups. Also looking at trying to rate the progress if our families, teachers, principals, and district administrators work together to plan, design, implement, evaluate our family engagement activities at the district sites and levels, was also rated as full implementation.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
The last two areas with school climate is basically a summary of the presentation that the board received about the California Healthy Kids Survey. And then 7, the access to the broad course of study is covered more thoroughly in the LCAP. And so that work is summarized as part of the board packet and will also be made available to the dashboard. I realize that's a lot of me reading and going through the check marks, and I appreciate your patience there. It's one of the required steps that we have to do every year as a district. And so I'm happy to entertain questions if the board has any at this time.
I think I might chat with you offline because I have some questions about it that I don't know if the whole board shares, but like I have questions about the value of arbitrary. It feels more like a survey than values that have actual data that you're, linking to something that's going to have a goal that's going to trigger, okay, last year we did a 4 and now that warrants us to do a 5. So I have a hard time with that, but maybe it's a state requirement and that's it. So
President Carolyn,
Yeah.
I would be happy to chat with you offline about that. Also, I do want you to know that not all of the scores went up. Okay, so that as we went through and rated, well, as I went through working with our site admin and the knowledge that we have of our own district, that we really try to take an honest approach with our ratings.
Yeah.
And so there are going to be some that didn't go up, that went down from the previous year based on some of the goals that we've set for ourselves, especially in those areas of parent engagement and trying to engage our educational partners. That is a voice that's very important to me as the director of curriculum and special projects, is having that voice of our educational partners and engaging them in a meaningful way. And even though we tried to improve our efforts this year, we think there's still some room for growth there. Okay.
Yeah. And so like a comparison of data of like where the numbers maybe didn't go up, where's that information for the board? Is that not really, if that's not in here, right?
Well, one of the things that we can do is the one thing that's nice about the dashboard is you can look at the year's rankings year by year. So you can see if they've just stayed the same over time, or you can see if they've changed a little over time. And, I think that one of the challenges in this kind of reporting to the state is that school districts and systems are living organisms. And so just like the LCAP, we talk about it being a living document that is going to have some changes in it from time to time and over time. If we're telling an accurate story of our progress as a district, yes, we would love to be 5s across the board and everything, but that's almost, impossible to do.
Yeah.
As you emphasize different areas of growth, you're probably going to see a positive result in those, but others may start to slip. And so you might have to start to re-emphasize something else. It's broad in scope.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this, I'll talk to you about it later. Okay, trustee Dr. Hazen, go ahead.
Nope, no comments. I'm glad to look forward to looking at these updated numbers on the dashboard.
Great, thank you.
Clerk McNary.
I guess I have similar questions about or maybe I don't have similar questions. Thank you for the presentation. I guess I wondered too, I was curious too, like how we go about getting from a 4 to a 5 or where that information comes from. I don't see anything though that would prevent me from approving it tonight. So thank you,
Thank you.
Director Rogoman.
Trustee Otmar.
I would agree. Self-assessment is a really interesting concept, and self-reflection and that kind of thing. I think sometimes we tend to, especially when it's a survey and it's going to be public data. And I'm not saying this is happening, but we tend to maybe want to appear better than what we are. And so that's where my concern would lie, is that we're just checking boxes without substance behind it. I want to make sure that what we're looking at is actually is truly reflective of what's happening in the district. And if there is an area that we're falling behind or the numbers dropping, how are we making up for that? What's the plan? What's the plan of action there? So just sort of what that looks like. And I don't know if, this could be this is a big document with a lot of information that's super important to me. So maybe this would also warrant kind of offline discussion too. So we're not taking up a whole bunch of time, but you could be busy. You've got, but it's so meaningful. I just want to make sure I'm understanding it and that we have accurate information here.
Sure. So some of the documentation that this work is based on is captured in the local control and accountability plan. So there's an entire section in that local control and accountability plan about engaging our educational partners and what that looks like. So there's some right. You're talking about the meat behind the rankings, and some of that can be located there. So, but thank you for that.
Yeah. And I think specifically too, I was looking at in 3, family engagement, looking at rating the progress and providing professional learning and support to teachers and principals to improve schools' capability to partner with families. And we have a 3 there. Is that because of what's the why? I guess I'm wondering what the why is, and when we're looking at equity and diversity and inclusion and all of that, some of the scoring that I'm looking at, it's hard because there's so many boxes, but it seemed like a little bit inconsistent, like a 5 or 4 in communication, but sometimes it's a 3. And so I guess I'm just having a hard time with understanding how it all fits together.
Part of that's because there's a lot there.
Yeah.
And another part of that is, I think that as we've gone through our cultural program efficiency work, one of the things that it's done is it's opened our eyes to areas where we can really improve. And so that's reflective of some of the 3s that you see there, is that, there's a greater perspective on our end of, reaching folks that typically we haven't reached in the past. And so we need some work in the area for how best to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Appreciate it.
Trustee Brian Swanson.
Well, there's a lot. Thank you. I like, I think everybody else here too is really drawn to, in particular, priority 3, page 957, where it's like, you see these couple of 3s jump in, but I think in a lot of ways too, because it's a self-evaluation too, that you're able to give yourself a 3 and say, all right, we need to do better is I think there's a lot of strength in that too, and realizing that it's like, okay. And when I think about one of the things that I would love for us to do community wise with engaging with families more, making, like, how do we wrap our arms around the parents and bring them into this? And how do we bring the community into educating the kids too? I think that that's central to it. So I'm trying to figure out how to say it. It's like, I'm not happy that we see 3s, but I'm happy that we can give ourselves 3s. Right.
Sure.
So that we're able to do that and say, yeah, you know what, we can do better. And that we realize that that's so important to what one of our primary goals here is to just, again, build community. And I think it was, the last board meeting where I was thinking about the school and our students and our educators here and everybody as being the heartbeat of the community. It's like, how do we do that? And how do we make that stronger? And I think that this being able to look at ourselves and say that it's like, love to be a 5 or a 3 is there's something great about being able to be honest with ourselves about that too.
Sure.
So thank you, blah, blah, blah. I'll stop. That's a lot of words tonight already.
Thank you.
So we'll go out to the public and see if there's anyone who would like to comment on this document. Louis, if there's anybody, I don't see anyone either. Okay. And anyone here in person? Billy, were you wanting to come up? No, just shifting in your chair. Sorry. Okay. And board members, I'll just look at you real quickly and see if there's anything else you'd like to say. Okay. All right. So we're voting tonight, I guess, just approving the data that's in this document. We're not giving direction on it or telling you to bring it back. Is there a deadline on it?
Correct. This needs to just have board approval before it goes to the dashboard. That's all.
Okay. And when's that deadline?
It's over the summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we have a motion on this one? What? Where'd everybody go? Okay.
I'll
right?
move to approve.
Okay.
Need a second.
Okay. All right. Motion made by Brian Swanson, seconded by trustee Dr. Hazen. Majority vote, please, Mandy.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed? Nay.
Thank you.
All right. Motion passes 4-1. One dissenting is Carolyn Swanson.
Thank you.
Thank you. Action item E. We're moving on to, yes, approval of amendment to the superintendent's current contract retroactive compensation adjustment. So technically, this is my item. Dr. Portas, do I have a specific thing you would like me to read as far as the disclaimer goes?
No, I think you can just read right off the information sheet and the fiscal impact. That's what we did the last time.
Okay, off of packet page 964 where it says
That's
information.
correct.
Okay. Okay. So this item is an item that the board is bringing forward. We're recommending, actually, technically, I guess I'm bringing it forward, but it's recommended that the Board of Education review and approve this amendment to the superintendent's current contract. And it's a retroactive compensation adjustment. So I don't know how far you want me to explain this, but essentially we just went through a series of increase in pay and benefits to essentially all employees of the district, really. And there's one employee that has yet to have a raise in pay or benefits take place. And that employee is the only employee that the board hires and fires and evaluates and approves pay for. And so that is why this item is kind of pulled to the side and is something that the board looks at and approves. So that's why it's here on the agenda and why I'm making this attempt to explain it. So here we are. So the board on an annual basis reviews the superintendent's contract and compensation. The proposed amendment would provide a retroactive salary increase, which is commensurate with the increase granted to other employee bargaining units. So the board agrees to pay superintendent a retroactive salary increase of 5%, commensurate and equal with the other employee bargaining unit salary adjustments, effective July 1st, 2022, which equates to an annual salary of $273,000, $926.57, payable in 12 equal monthly installments, retroactive to July 1st, 2022. This amendment only provides a compensation adjustment and does not extend the superintendent's contract. And the fiscal impact of this item is this 5% on ongoing compensation agreement is commensurate with the other employee bargaining unit salary adjustments. This contract adjustment includes an increase in annual salary of $13,044.12 to be funded by the general fund. And then there's a half-page form here that if the board approves this, myself will sign and Dr. Portis will sign. And that's it. So with that, board, do we have any discussion on this item? I'll start with trustee Dr. Hazen.
I'll just quickly take the moment again to thank you for board meeting number 360, and it's fitting that this is on it.
Yeah, how did you count them?
Took-
What was your system?
I was going back a lot of. board
You
packets.
went through the calendar?
Actually, Mandy helped me a lot. It was just of interest at one point a couple of years ago, just kind of wondering, and so and then Mandy did a backtrack for me on board meetings all the way back to when I started. And then from that point forward, just kind of watching. And it was more just I don't know, just.
Yeah, it just became a thing that
just
you
a fun thing.
kind
Yeah,
of noted.
that was all.
Well, that's a data point, right? That's great.
Yeah.
Boards love that. Clerk McNary.
No comments. This is consistent with all of the other increases we've given, and thank you for your service.
Trustee Otmar?
No, this is fantastic. The only thing that I'm wondering is if there's any possibility of video from those early, none of that was videoed, right?
I've never videoed.
Oh, yeah, it would just be audio. They
Those
were on
early
CD.
days,
Yeah,
I
We're
can
ready to hear back.
I can remember my first meeting though very vividly. It's
I bet.
Yeah.
What a day.
Yeah.
Trustee
Thank you
Brian
very much.
Swanson. Oh, sorry, Laura. Okay, trustee Brian Swanson.
I've already tried to talk you out of leaving, so I'm not going to do that. Thank you for 300 and I wish I could have been there for more of them, but thank you for what I'm sure were 360 great meetings.
Okay, thank you. And we'll go out to the public to see if anyone would like to comment on this. Anyone online or in person, please feel welcome to comment. I don't see anyone online who would like to comment, and neither does Louis. Okay, great. Trustees, any last thing you would like to say? Okay, everyone's shaking their head. So on this, we just need to get a motion, please.
I would love to make a motion to adopt the back pay for Superintendent Portis.
Thank you so much, trustee Dr. Hazen. Anyone want a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion made by trustee Dr. Hazen, seconded by trustee Brian Swanson. Mandy, do you mind doing a majority vote, please?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you all
Oh,
very much. I'm grateful. Appreciate it. Thank you.
of course, it's only fair. Yeah. Action item F, approval of Pacific Grove Unified School District Adult Education Instructor Group Agreement. This is on page 966 of the packet, if anyone would like to reference it. Joshua Jordan, did you have anything you wanted to say about this?
I would just say that this was the last group that we did work with on Meet and Confer. We came to an agreement about a week and a half ago. This does not require AB 1200 reporting to the County Office of Education, and is noted in the information and fiscal impact section. They too went with the 5% and 1,000, which equates to fiscal impact of just over $12,000 for the year.
Thank you so much. Yes, it definitely is the season for the approval of such items, and they're very important items for people to get their pay increase and benefit increases. So Clerk McNary, any questions or comments on this?
No, thank you.
Okay, trustee Otmar? Trustee Brian Swanson?
No, thank you.
Okay, I don't have anything. Trustee Dr. Hazen?
No, nothing.
All right, thanks. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this item, just a reminder, this item is the approval of Pacific Grove Unified School District Adult Education Instructor Group Agreement. If you're online, just raise your digital hand and we'll get to you. We don't see anyone raising their digital hand and we don't have anyone here in public. So I'm just going to pop back over to the board and see if there's any questions that came into your minds. Elliot, did you have something?
I'll make a just a quick comment. It's really nice. I've seen now two people on this agenda that were involved very deeply in the early raising of my kids. So it's really cool to see them as part. So to Miss Jen Hall and Miss Jennifer Thompson, it was really cool to see them being more involved with the district. So.
Lovely. Okay. With that, if anyone would like to make a motion, please do.
I'm gonna make that motion.
I'm happy to second it.
Okay, motion made by trustee Brian Swanson, seconded by trustee Dr. Hazen. Majority vote, please, Mandy.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to action item G. This is discussion for a potential subcommittee for superintendent contract updates. And I should say discussion and action, right? Because we're gonna take possible action on this tonight. This is also my item. This is so funny. Okay, so this is my item, I guess. And so this item, if you all remember, is coming to us from generated from a discussion that we had during our last special meeting. And that was a special meeting where we had our superintendent search vendor here guiding us on kind of the the process of doing a superintendent search. And one of the things they brought up is they asked us if we wanted to develop a subcommittee. So it would be a non-majority of the board. So it'd be two board members to go over and review, let me give it the right exact, to review and possibly update the superintendent contract and then bring that contract with those suggested updates to the entire board. And so we do not have to have a subcommittee. We can just all kind of dive into the contract. And I did ask for a copy of the contract to be in your blue folders tonight because I don't see it in the packet. So it's here. So it's 6 pages. And it's, it's well organized. There's all the components. They're numbered. You can look through it. It's a legal contract, right? Offer, acceptance, consideration. And so tonight, the real decision we need to make on this is if we want to do a subcommittee to kind of dive into the details of this. So I'll start with trustee Brian Swanson. Any comments on this?
I'm still in favor of us going through it, all of us together. It's 6 pages. I was burning through it a few days ago. I think we could tighten it up a little bit.
Okay.
But I would still like for all of us, when I think about it too, it's like, it's the one thing you'd mentioned earlier, right? It's like when we hire a superintendent, it's the one person that we hire.
One person.
And I would love for all of our eyeballs to be on it in that way. And I know it's going to take more time probably to do it that way, but I would like to do it that way.
Yeah, it would most likely require either a meeting dedicated to that or a meeting mostly dedicated to that, right? If we do a subcommittee, one perceived benefit, I'm not saying it is necessarily benefit, but if we have a subcommittee, the subcommittee can work on it offline and then bring that to a regular board meeting and just have it as an item on the agenda of a regular board meeting. If we decide that we want to do it all together, which is totally fine, then most likely we need to have a special meeting for that. And we would need to ask our vendor if that special meeting, if they preferred for that to happen during the summer, might be in June. I don't remember the date.
Probably would have to do that too. Yeah. Because
Probably.
There's an approaching deadline that we do need to have that, whatever tweaks we might see
Mhm.
in a contract, we need to address
Pretty
those.
soon. And then we did set that date for October 10th. Jennifer McNary, I'm looking at you. You're the you have such a good calendar mind. I think it's October 10th for the superintendent interviews, which means many things have to take place before that, right? So, okay, so thank you, trustee Brian Swanson. I'm fine either way, honestly. I don't want to say I don't care, but I'm I'm fine with either decision that's made tonight. So trustee Dr. Hazen.
Yeah, and I'll echo, I like the idea of all of us looking at this. I mean, having looked at the contract, I think there are only a few points in my mind that I would be interested in necessarily discussing. So, if the majority of the board does feel a subcommittee would be useful, I would be happy to support that. But I also agree, again, I fall on a similar path as you, as I could see both paths being useful. I like the idea of looking at it as a board. I also could see a subcommittee being useful in getting some thoughts together first.
Okay, some majority of the board will have to make a decision on this tonight and not be so neutral on it. So we'll see. Clerk McNary.
I still see the value in doing an in-depth look at the contract, which I think would be, would make sense in a subcommittee format. I think it's gonna be, I guess I see both sides of it as well. I'm gonna take the position of, I think this work would best be served as having a subcommittee who can dedicate a bunch of time to it and then bring that back to the board, similar to how we do with the policy committee. I don't think that gives anybody more say or less say over what goes into the contract. And all this being said, we can get to the point where we have thought everything through and had our meeting, and then we have a candidate and we have to go back into negotiations about whatever ends up on the table at that point. So I am in favor of the subcommittee.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Otmar.
My preference is that we all get our eyes on the contract and that we're able to bring forth anything that we may want to change or adjust. A subcommittee, depending on how it's done, I mean, I don't know. My preference is that we all get eyes on it. I think it might be a little bit difficult to do in the summer because, if that's happening this month and people have plans, then that may be difficult. My question is would this be a closed session or is this something that's open session?
I think they said open session, but I am not the expert on
I
this
think it would
item.
be, as I understand it from our conversation at the last meeting, I think it would be open. I'm pretty sure it would be
I
open.
think they said open, but I mean, I can message, we're going to take a break in a little while. I can message Eric and ask if that's a deciding factor for you. We can trail this item and bring it back later in the meeting. But either way, I think the heart of it is that I'm hearing that that perhaps the majority of the board is thinking, you know what, this entire process, let's do it all 5 of us all the time. And that's kind of what it sounds like I'm hearing. And even like in our special meeting, there was a point where we had a majority for some decision. I can't remember which decision it was now. But I just felt like it wasn't right to even go forward in that moment with just a majority. Like we kind of want to have as much of us brought along as possible. Having said that, though, if we don't do a subcommittee and this needs a special meeting and 1 or 2 board members can't make it, we're going to be in a position where there might be 3 of us or 4 of us. So we have to kind of, not that I have to tell you this, we're all responsible adults, but we're going to have to prioritize making this meeting. Otherwise, I will feel all of this discussion will be for not trying to get all 5 of us together. And then someone's like, sorry, I have something else I
I'll
want to
give
do.
up a morning of fishing to do it.
Whoa,
That's big.
that's big. Okay, go ahead, Elliot.
Just a question for the record, if I were the one to miss that meeting, I could still pass along my thoughts.
No, I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Because what happened, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off so abruptly. You're like shocked by my answer, but the thing is when we do special meetings or when we do, it's kind of like, that's the time. Right? So Brian, what do you think? I mean, do you
Well, I
submit?
think it's important for us to all be there for it. That's what I'm driving at. Because I think that there's all these little subtleties and nuances that,
Yes.
that we might miss when we're
Absolutely. And the
dealing
tricky
with this.
part gets, if we have someone who's submitting what they want, then whose shoulders does that fall on? Does that fall on mine as a board president? Am I like, hold on, let me make sure. And then I may not represent that information properly. So does that information then go to the vendor and then they're trying to read something forward? And it's kind of like, if you're not at the meeting, I don't know, I don't know how much we can then foster that. I don't want it on my shoulders to bring someone else's information forward.
I want us all there for it.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the barb of not doing the subcommittee is, okay, that means we need to all be there. I don't know. So anyways, we'll go out to the public. This is an item that has public comment on it as usual. So we'll hear if anybody in the public wants to comment on it. We'd love to hear from you. Lewis, anyone online liking to comment? Okay. Nope. Okay. Coming back to the board. So this is something that we should make a decision on. So I'll start.
I have a quick question. Do
please.
we know when this contract originated? Is there a date of the original contract? I mean, I see that it says April 2022, but was it modified? Or when the last time there was a modification to this contract?
The contract that you're seeing was the most recent modification. But the structure of that contract started in 2007. So it's a lot of iterations over the year. Every year it goes to legal counsel to take a look at it and make sure it's all the other aspects of it are correct. But you can go back to 2007 and see the original version of it. There's quite a few additions over the years that were negotiated, with the board. And typically the contracts are all created first in closed session. And because you're going to talk with a candidate and come to agreements with a candidate, the final contract, however, like what happened this evening by Ed Code, is required to be presented in open session at a regularly scheduled board meeting. So that's the final. But up until then, you have the opportunity to discuss the contract in closed session.
Okay. Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Elliot.
Two more clarifying questions.
Mhm.
In special meeting format or in a subcommittee, what would the necessity be of having our lawyer in the room as well? So like, I guess I'm wondering is, if we had a special meeting, would that mean more time, more money to have our lawyer in the room versus subcommittee or not?
I think it's up to us. I mean, I could see going both ways where we kind of toss our ideas and we put together this zebra document, all of our pieces or whatever. And it's, there's a lot to work with already, and then submit it to them and have them review it. Or we could have them here if we thought that would be beneficial and thought that would be beneficial. We could also ask for guidance. I think that's a great question to ask our guides on this journey, right? They're like the conductors of all of this. So we could ask leadership associates what they recommend. Josh, did you have an idea on that? No, sorry. I thought you may have. Yeah, so, but one thing for sure is that the document, whatever form draft it takes, will be reviewed by legal. I just don't know if we're going to ask for Lou or one of his designees to be here the entire time. So, any other comments or questions? Okay. Trustee Brian, you're the first kind of on the docket. So did you want to say anything else related to this?
No, I mean, I think you guys all know where I stand on this. I think our biggest trick would be, it's like, I mean, do we need to pull out the calendars for a second and then see too? It's like, can we do this and I think we do. I think we need to take a second and look if we have.
Yeah, we might as
If we
well.
can, and I know not everybody may be able right now to look at their calendar. So can we go around and see, is everybody able right now just to see, can we look at our calendars?
We
I have
can.
2 dates this summer that I cannot do. Otherwise, I'll make anything work.
Let me just ask Ralph a procedural question. I mean, looking at our calendars, that's still related to this agenda item, right? Deciding on the subcommittee, or is that outside of it? Okay.
Yeah.
I think that'll give folks a good idea on how to vote, right? If they maybe want to do the safer kind of subcommittee, because I will say that part of like my own process that I would want to do is reach out to a handful of other districts, kind of see what their versions are. That type of work is something that like usually I would be real quiet by myself reading thoroughly, not talking in a public meeting and reading it and digesting it. So then I guess we would be asking staff to reach out if we didn't have a subcommittee. If there was a subcommittee, that would be the subcommittee's task.
And one question, I did like your idea of potentially asking at a break leadership associates, because I'm wondering if that's something they could help us with. Because they may have a
The
long,
examples.
exactly, they may have a long examples of good.
I would
and
think,
bad.
I would think so, yeah.
So that might be worth asking quickly. And if they have a recommendation on past searches, whether, there's been a need for a subcommittee or if it's been more useful in their opinion to have a full board.
Well, they were here.
Yep.
For quite a length of time for, talking about it. So, I don't know. I think we have to decide. I'm sorry. Ooh, okay, calendar wise, do we want to see if it's even possible in June, or is this a futile act because we don't know if leadership associates can be there for the calendar item? I don't know if this is really the best time to do the calendar
No,
figuring out, and they may also have some other calendar thing that they need to do
Yeah.
before or after it.
that's a good point.
So let's, maybe we just get on the same page so we can give them direction
Mhm.
and then they can go forward with it and let them kind of drive the ship on that,
Okay.
if that's okay. So,
Can I ask one quick question before we continue?
yes,
So if there's a subcommittee of two, and what does that look like as far as presentation of, okay, these are the things that we think could be changed or should be changed or adjusted? Would that just be presented to the rest of the board and then we could then provide input and say, I also think that this may be
yes.
needs to be adjusted? I can see how that could just kind of condense the time spent and we would still all have eyes on it. So we would still have input, but it may be able to sort of move it forward a little bit faster.
Yeah, the way that I see it happening, and if this is how we all agree, then this is how it would happen, because we are the drivers of this part of it. So there would be a packet for either the portion of the meeting or the whatever meeting we have. The packet would have the current one, would have maybe some other examples in it, and it would either have a red line version of what the committee recommended, or it would have a clean version. And, there would be a communication in this written document of the recommendations that were made by the committee, but all of us realizing that's only two people on the board. And then we can really dig in and hash it out. And the committee can say, you know what, we dug into this other one and we saw this district, in this other county, but they have this really cool clause in there that we wanted to add to it. And so then we can talk about that as well. Because some of this is so cut and dry, like the term and the salary, the work days. I mean, so much of this is pretty basic. So personally, I would be out there hunting for something that maybe really advanced this contract and made it better for our district as a whole. Maybe a longevity clause, maybe not. I don't know. So anyways, yeah, go ahead.
Two quick. So one thing, I kind of view it as a Mobius loop without being able to go through the calendars to decide exactly which way, because, as was said, if we can't have all five here, that might not be the right approach. So, I mean, that is leaning me towards the subcommittee idea. The other question I would ask and fully understand or expect potentially a no is, could we discuss interest in serving on that subcommittee before we vote? Because if all of us say none of us want to serve, then it
That's
seems
a
like.
valid question. Yeah.
Okay.
Who would want to be on the subcommittee? Anyone? Brian would?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're shocked, I know.
I mean, a little bit, but okay. Okay, so we need two. So Brian's up for it. Anybody else? Anybody else? Just say a word.
I would be interested. I'm just not sure how available I would be this summer, frankly. So I'd be happy if someone else wants to with Brian, but also be happy to do it with Brian if no one else.
Well, and then the subcommittee, that's two people coordinating their schedules. So it's a little more, the odds are in your favor. You'll be able to figure something out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, okay, so that's what our subcommittee would potentially look like. Laura, what are you saying?
Is it possible to provide input through, through email, obviously not to board members, but, perhaps through Mandy or through Josh? Because he'll be gone. If, to provide input that can be forwarded on to the subcommittee, just to sort of highlight things that others might see. I don't know if that's
Before it gets to
Right, like-
to a special meeting or on the.
or
agenda.
even before the subcommittee meets, so that there's, it gets, highlight, like areas may be highlighted that other trustees might see that they have concern with, or that, I mean, I'm not sure if that's even possible or if that's making sense, but just to provide additional input without having to sit in a room together and meet, but it's going through a third party.
I think we either need to all be here and hash it out together, or do the 2-person subcommittee and be okay with the 2 folks, whoever we select, going through the versions and the drafts, and not bringing, I'm not saying that they're bringing like even a final draft to us as a board, but bringing their insight, because they were able to take the time and really say, well, what about this? What about that? Which, like, even this discussion right here, where we're trying to like discuss details, you can feel how it's kind of like, okay, we've got other business to attend to. We've got this going on, poor people, waiting for us. And so, so that's what we want to avoid, right? Is getting in a situation where we want to give this all of our attention, but we can't really, because so either of these tools, either doing a full meeting with this item, a special meeting just related to it, or doing the subcommittee, the nitty gritty of how the subcommittee works, we can tell Eric and Sally, hey, this is our biggest concern, that like a voice might get lost somehow, and they can maybe comfort any fears related to a subcommittee. Subcommittee, I will say, is a tool used in, I don't want to say every elected body, but many elected bodies. It's the go-to for when you have an item that needs to kind of get like a deeper look, and a deeper look by the elected body, because most of the deeper look items are staff level and they bubble up to us and they get on our agenda, and we, pick them apart as board members. But like, so this item is something that we need to work on, and a subcommittee is definitely a proper tool to get everyone's voice heard on it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, as long as once the subcommittee meets, I was just thinking perhaps it could move things along a little bit faster, but as long as once the subcommittee meets, we still all have an active voice. If there is a piece that hasn't been addressed, that maybe there's something in there that I feel strongly about, that the subcommittee, it didn't come up. I'd like to make sure that I still have a voice, that I can say, hey, this is important to me. I'd like to have this redlined, or this amount changed, or whatever
Yes.
it might be.
You will still be able to say that. And as long as the majority of the board agrees,
Mhm.
then that would either stay or be removed.
Okay. Yeah.
So
As long as all of our voices are still heard, I see the value in the subcommittee.
yeah, that's kind of the beauty of the subcommittee or an ad hoc committee. I mean, like that's what they're for, is to dig in and save time, but also be able to do a good job.
Okay. And sending an email in advance of the subcommittee meeting, is that?
I mean, it would be up to the subcommittee members how they would want to do that. I guess for right now, let's just hypothetically say it's Brian and Elliot. What do you say about that?
I would happily accept comment if we could do it through an appropriate channel.
Yeah.
Because I would want to be able to take a deep dive in whatever issues folks felt were important. So whether it's like a specific thing like this is a concern, or you're like, generally, I feel like the superintendent contract needs to have childcare in it too. I would want to then say, okay, Leadership Associates, can you give us examples of childcare language that might be useful? So I personally would welcome that, but I realize that might not be as easy.
I think if we had a subcommittee, that is absolutely something that's doable in a subcommittee. It's trickier if we've got a live meeting going and there's an individual then tasked with bringing someone else's information during the meeting.
Right. Yeah, I was saying it, I mean, hopefully it would happen before, but yeah, no, I totally see your point there. And I've been on subcommittees for elected bodies before and seen them work well and seen them work really poorly for various reasons. So I do see the potential value, but also potential pitfall is generally what I would say.
Okay, so it's 8:40. If the board's okay with it, let's make a decision on this and then we'll move on to the next item. Would anyone like to make a motion to generate a subcommittee for the superintendent's contract updates? And if so, you would need to name the subcommittee participants.
Sure. I will make a motion to create a subcommittee for the purpose of reviewing and updating the existing superintendent contract with our two subcommittee members being trustee Brian Swanson and trustee Elliot Hazen.
I'll
That's my
second that.
motion. Oh, yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure you were okay with that.
Yeah.
So I was okay seconding it too, but okay, thank you, Laura. So motion made by Clerk McNary to generate a subcommittee with Brian Swanson and Elliot Hazen, seconded by trustee Laura Otmar. Mandy, if you're still there, will you do a majority vote, please?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And so I would just say, subcommittee member Swanson and Hazen, if you can send an email to Eric and Sally, letting them know that this took place tonight and a rock and roll with that, because they'll get you the dates and stuff.
I'm right on.
Thank you so much. Okay, so, we have a choice now. We can either take a 10-minute break or we can kind of readjust our energy and dive back into the action item H, approval of fiscal officer reclassification and updated salary schedule. I would love to be able to take a bio break right now. But majority of the board, are you okay with the bio break right now, or would you like to keep going? Okay, we will take a 10-minute break. It's 8:42. We'll be back at 8:52. Thank you all.
Yeah, I know. That's like a
8:52. We are going to move on to action item H, approval of fiscal officer reclassification and updated salary schedule. Joshua Jordan, this is your item. Would you like to say anything?
Sure. Thank you, President Kelly.
Sure.
So oftentimes throughout the year, we look at reclassification process related to folks leaving a position. We also look at the positions related to the job duties associated with the position and what's comparable in other districts. When I took a look at this about 3 months ago, I realized that number one, the job description wasn't really comparable with other districts for the type of work being done in this position. Number two, I was of the impression at that time that we were potentially losing our current fiscal officer. So I wanted to take a look at it and get ahead of this reclassification process. And then the third component, and I think the most crucial component for me, was looking at having another layer of management and supervision under me for all of the direct reports that I have. So that was really the reasoning and the rationale behind this. I looked at, I want to say it was 13 different districts. 7 of the 13, this position falls in the classified management category, either as a coordinator, fiscal officer, or director. And when looking at the salary comparisons as well, we were substantially lower than any other district in the county or any of our comparable districts. So I brought that forward to you tonight. The revisions in the job description are minor. The only revisions that I made to the current job description, which was built, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago, was brought forward to the board, were associated with the supervisory role for accounting, payroll, benefits, and staff complying with effective office procedures. And then I added knowledge, laws, ordinance, regulations affecting the operations of accounting principles and practices and their application to a wide variety of transactions and problems, especially as they pertain to school districts. One last thing I would just like to say before moving forward. We do have a relatively small fiscal team here at the district office. And I would say one component that is missing is somebody in accounting. So the accounting is done by the fiscal officer and myself, and that is unlike most districts in the comparable. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Joshua Jordan. I'm actually first on my list of question askers, so I'll dive in. So was the entire department reviewed for reclassification and or changes in pay?
No, they were not. We do have relatively all new staff in my department. Payroll has been here for a year, a little over a year. One of them has been here for just a little over 6 months. And then accounts payable, she's been here for just a little bit longer, a little over a year. And then my executive admin assistant, Carly, who's also confidential, similarly has been here just a little over a year. So when I looked at this, I looked at the job description specifically. And as I mentioned, I looked at comparables, and that was the reason why I looked at this job in particular. Also taking into consideration that I have 9 direct reports, and it would have been nice for me to add another level of management underneath me, specifically for payroll and accounts payable, because really those staff actually do report and work with on a daily basis the fiscal officer.
Is it typical for positions, people in those positions? I'm not talking about individuals, I'm talking about job descriptions. Is it typical for the folks in the payroll, what was the other one?
Accounts payable,
Accounts payable, and the third
accounts receivable. Which
accounts receivable. Is it typical for those 3 positions to report to the fiscal officer in the majority of other districts?
It is. It's untypical for them to report direct to the CBO in
Okay.
most districts.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. And then zooming out for just a moment. So in our district, what is the procedure or process for reclassifying, and was it followed?
So the procedure that has been followed in the year that I've been here was that we look at positions when somebody's vacating the position. So, and we do that for a number of reasons. I would say first and foremost, to make sure that for the recruitment process, we have a competitive salary schedule. It also gives us the time to reevaluate the job description itself and duties within the job description. Duties change over time, systems we use change over time, and some of those systems and duties are listed in a job description that could be antiquated. So the time frame for doing this is associated usually with somebody leaving the position. Now, I can't speak to what was done prior to my tenure here over the past year. When I was in the Monterey County Office of Education, we followed a reclassification process for management every 4 years and every 2 years for classified. It was written into the contract. I'm not going down that path, but I will say that I was involved in a decade worth of reclassification of positions on the certificated, classified, and management side. And there was a system involved, and the trigger points throughout basically told you when it was time to evaluate those job descriptions, reevaluate, and then potentially reclassify them.
I could see a lot of value in having a system for that. Yeah, that's okay. So that's good I'll put a pin in that for another day. And then just a really quick question about the job description itself. So you were saying that the only thing that was changed in the job description was, I have it here somewhere. The only part that was changed in the job description is that this position will now supervise accounting, payroll, and benefit staff in complying with effective office procedures, and that they would have knowledge of laws, ordinances, and regulations affecting the operations of accounting principles and practices and their applications to a wide variety of transactions and problems, especially as it pertains to school districts. So that's what's listed here. Was any change made to education or experience in the job description?
No changes were made to anything else other than what you just described.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you for answering all my questions. Trustee Dr. Hazen, any questions?
Just one question, just on the timing. Is it, being the last meeting of the year, is it important for us to get done now, or is it something that could wait to the fall? And I know the answer is probably, it would be great to get done now, but would just love a honest assessment.
It would be great to have it done now, specifically because of the supervisory role that I'm proposing. We all know within less than 30 days, we'll no longer have a superintendent. I'll be interim. Yes, I'm capable of doing both jobs, but it just helps me with level of supervisory role beneath me during the interim period, but also beyond. I think that the most important part is this is something that structurally, I believe, should be in place if you look at comparable districts. So would there be an issue with postponing? More likely not. We have a lot that we have to get through this summer. But I wrote it this way because I felt like it was best looked at when looking at comparable districts. And I read all of the job descriptions for all of the comparable districts. So it's very, very similar. The way this job description was written prior to the 2 bullets that I changed is very similar and comparable to other positions throughout the county, director level and coordinator level.
And I'm sorry, Elliot, I had another question pop in my mind. Were you finished with your questions? Okay, sorry, Josh Dorn, sorry, trustees. When it comes to evaluating staff, would the fiscal officer then evaluate these three positions, or would those positions still be evaluated by yourself?
They would evaluate those three positions.
The fiscal officer would then?
Correct.
Okay, okay. Just wrapping my head around kind of like the org chart of it all. So thank you for humoring me on that. Clerk McNary?
Thank you for asking those clarifying questions. This looks reasonable to me within, I guess, the org chart I envision. I would love an org chart.
too.
As far as the layer of separation and eliminating some of those direct reports right to you. So I think it makes sense. I appreciate all of the very thorough comparables, and where this is landing in all of them seems reasonable for me. So I don't have any concerns about it.
Thank you, Clerk McNary. Trustee Otmar?
We spoke earlier today about this, so I really appreciate a lot of the clarification. It helped me a lot. I did think of another question as far as evaluating other employees. Will they be receiving additional training, management training on how to evaluate employees, what to look for, things like that?
They will. And fortunately, all evaluations for all employees within my division are completed as of 2 weeks ago. So we have time to work through that process, and absolutely that we use the Frisk model for progressive discipline, and as well there'll be training associated with filling out an evaluation, how we engage with staff on the evaluation. So yes, and like I said, fortunately, all evaluations are now complete. They were completed by me, so it would be something moving forward a year from now.
And then as far as the position itself, I know this is a reclassification, but is this something that gets opened up sort of internally so that others can apply for this position, or is the reclassification go specifically to one employee?
Yeah, it's the reclassification of the job description. So if
Okay.
you have a person in that position, it's the reclass of the
Okay.
position for that, the individual who holds the position at the time.
Okay, thanks for
Yeah.
clarifying that. And then my last question is, what both of you just mentioned, is it possible to get an org chart for the district? Because it would be so nice to be able to just see that on paper to mentally wrap my head around a lot of this.
Right, so we're gonna work on expanding upon the current org chart. I did get an org chart from Director Menke today. It's really kind of a high level district organizational chart. I think we're going to move forward with site level, department level organizational charts, something I'm very familiar with, and it's something we can do. And it would paint this picture a lot better if you were able to see the kind of hierarchy throughout the process. I agree
Yeah, that'd
completely.
be super helpful. Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you for answering those questions.
Is it the phone tree? Is that the org chart? No, it's different. Okay.
No, we do have a district-wide org chart, and then there's a human resources org chart. And we have it's sort of an organizational chart that just shows responsibilities of each.
This would be
each
so
position.
valuable. This would be so valuable for me. If you have extras, if you can send me an email with the digital. Okay. Okay, thank you so much. That is wonderful. Trustee Brian Swanson.
Not a lot. I mean, well researched and well explained. I love the idea of having a chart that we can look at, just because often it's like, trying to figure out who does what and connect a name with a duty.
Yeah, will
So-
prevent us from having to ask staff these questions sometimes, right? Save time.
So, but I'm in favor of just moving it forward too. It's like, I know that you would take on the heavy lifting, because that's just what you do too, and be like, oh yeah, we can wait. But it's like, that's just how you are. And, with taking on these new duties and safety director too, it's like, you don't need more to do. So I think let's move it forward.
And yet, even with this change, from my understanding, it's not like we're making this change just because you're going to be in an interim position for a stretch of time. This is a healthy decision for the overall department and district office, ongoing, permanent. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for educating us on all this. I'm going to go out to the public and see if any members of the public have anything to say. And remember, if you're online, you're welcome to comment through Zoom. Just raise your digital hand. We don't have anyone here in the room who's coming up to the podium. So I'm just going to give it just like a deep breath and wait, see if anyone wants to come up. Josh, just one last thing. So the fiscal impact is a $12,000 currently budgeted general fund expenditure for this.
That's correct.
Okay. I think we have asked many questions. I'm going to bounce back over to the board and see if any other questions that maybe popped up in your minds, which you're welcome to ask. I see giggling. I'm not sure. Okay. Anyone? No one's online. No one's in public wanting to comment. Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion to approve the fiscal officer reclassification and updated salary schedule.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion made by Clerk McNary, seconded by Trustee Otmar. Mandy, can we get a majority vote, please?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much, Mandy. Okay, moving on to action item I. Measure A and Measure D Bond Citizens Bond Oversight Committee Report Bond. Okay, so that's the item. Item I, Joshua Jordan, would you like to speak to this? Let me ask the board, do you have any questions on this? Is this an item that you would like an explanation on? Elliot, what do you think? No, okay. Okay, so having said that, if any member of the public, of course, would like to review this, this is a public document. It's on page 974 of our packet, but this is also posted on our website as part of our bond responsibilities. So there's many places to see this. If you have any trouble finding it, please reach out to any of us and we'll happy to help you, especially any staff member. I'll go out to public comment on this. Are there any members of the public wishing to comment on this item? Measure A and Measure D Bond Citizens Bond Oversight Committee Report. Seeing no one, I would like to just take a quick moment and thank really quickly the following people who are members of the public who are on our Bond Oversight Committee. And I really do thank them for poring over this information and spending their time in a volunteer manner to make sure that the district is being responsible with bond funds, et cetera. Alex Lorca, Stephanie Atai, Laurel Pfeiffer, Maria Fonferick, Jessica Thompson, and Travis Long. And then we also have a vacant position on the committee. The position is somebody who would be a member of a taxpayer organization. I know this is a vacancy we often have, but if anyone's listening and part of a taxpayer or association, please come forward. Yes, go ahead, Joshua Jordan.
So as part of the process with Dale Scott Company, we're working on an outreach campaign right now to fill those seats this summer. And then we plan to bring back what the board will approve today is simply a formality. It just keeps us within compliance on where we're at with Measure A and Measure D. But once we fill those two seats, which we plan to do this summer, we'll bring a full report back to the board and to the community, which will be eventually be a trifold mailer that goes out to the community to show them all the work that's been done, specifically this past fiscal year and through the summer.
Music to my ears. Thank you so much. Okay, no member of the public has raised their digital hand or has come up to the podium. Trustees, anyone like to say anything on this item? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve on staff's recommendation, action item I.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion made by Carolyn Swanson, seconded by Clerk McNary. Mandy, do you mind?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to action item J. Approval of Measure A, which is our Ed Technology Bond, Education Technology Expenditures. And this item is Matthew Binder and also Louis Algazes. Would you all like to speak to it, or would you like us to just kind of see if the board has any questions and then?
Happy to answer any questions you might have. I just wanted to point out there was something that caught our attention,
Mhm.
very minor arithmetic error that occurred on item 39 on the list. We noticed it right after it went to press. The total number, the total cost doesn't change. It was student mice, wireless mice for Robert Down. We had a cost per unit error in that column. That was the only.
Oh,
thing
I
that
see.
caught our-
A little bit of a doozy one. Yeah, okay. I see.
Outside of that, this was technology committee, district-wide technology committee endorsed on May 18th unanimously.
Mhm.
And many of these items, both Louis and myself manage in terms of project implementation. And yeah, we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
And let me ask, did you create a presentation that you would like to share with us? Because I don't want to cut you short from doing that.
Not specifically, just wanted to point out that, of course, you have the itemized distribution right there as far as categoricals go.
Mhm.
Teacher hardware, along with district infrastructure, technology infrastructure, taking up obviously a majority of the expenditures this time around.
Thank you. And that's the same that's in the packet, if anyone
Correct.
wanted to refer to that later.
Correct.
Okay, page 979. Thank you. Louis, did you want to contribute anything? No? Well, thank you so much for always running the controls. So board, I'll go around and then we'll see if any member of the public has a really good comment for this one. So trustee Dr. Hazen.
No real comments. I'm really excited about next year to hear more about some of the.
Absolutely. Yeah. Happy to do it. Do that without Mike.
Clerk McNary.
Yeah, same. I'd love to hear more about it next year. No comments or questions from me. Thank you.
Trustee Otmar.
I have no questions, but thank you very much.
Trustee Brian Swanson.
I am all good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. And I actually don't have any questions on it. And you remind us, you did bring up an update with some really great information a little while ago.
That's right. April 20th board meeting, we presented.
Okay.
Both Louis, myself, as well as Mr. Andrew Bradley, presented on some of the kind of signature projects we've been working on as they're tied to the tech plan.
To the
and,
tech, like master plan that
yeah,
you
the
guys
3-year
generated.
educational technology
Okay.
plan.
And do you think that next year about that same time we'll hear updates again?
Yeah, it's our
Is that
pleasure
okay
to
with
come
you, board?
and give you an update annually. That's fine with us.
We really like that. So thank you.
Well,
Okay, so it looks like we do need to approve this item. This is still in the action realm. So would anyone like to make a motion on staff's recommendation for this?
I'll move to approve Measure A Ed Tech Bond Education Technology Expenditures.
I'll second.
Thank you. So trustee, motion made by trustee Brian Swanson, seconded by clerk McNary. Mandy?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for the information. Thank you. Okay, last item in the action section. So this is our board calendar and future meetings. Dr. Portos, seems kind of funny to ask you about future meetings, but my last meeting joke of the meeting.
Good one. Actually, there are no changes to the calendar at this point. So if the board wants to entertain any additions to the calendar, now would be the time.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll go around the room. Trustee Dr. Hazen.
I'll just say I'm sorry that I will be missing the first meeting of the year due to a work commitment. So
We understand.
I'm very bummed about that.
You will be missed. Clerk McNary,
Nothing from me. Thank you.
trustee Otmar.
Nope, nothing here.
Okay, trustee Brian Swanson.
All good here. Thank you.
I have nothing myself. We'll go out to the public and see if anyone has a board calendar, future meetings, comment. And as always, feel free to raise your digital hand if you do. By the way, we have 22 participants still online right now. Literally just said 21. Okay, we have 21 participants online right now, which is so great. really thankful for the Zoom because it allows our staff to kind of Zoom in if they need to, maybe if they live far away or they have childcare that they need to. And I just think it's, in my opinion, a bit of an equity move to allow that. So Dr. Portis, thank you for allowing your staff and encouraging your staff that it's okay to Zoom in from home.
Of course.
So I think that's really great. Okay, I bought myself some time. Anyone raising their hand online? Nobody, and nobody in public. All right, so with that, since we didn't make any changes to it, I don't think we have to take any action whatsoever on this. All right. Y'all okay if we move past it? Okay. Okay, moving on to information discussion. It's 9:15, by the way. Information discussion, item A, review of legal fees for July 2022 to April 2023. Joshua Jorn, anything?
Nothing to add other than we have had a reduction in legal fees this year in comparison to last year. So that's positive news to report.
Yeah, and thank you. I don't know if this is necessarily the first time. It's the first time I remember that you guys included the previous year. And thank you, Ralph, because I think I asked you for that just like kind of in a breezy way and you remembered. And that's just so helpful because otherwise we're just looking at costs and we're not really sure if, you know, how they compare. So this is great. And this is broken down. And of course, this is part of our public packet as well, if any member of the public would like to see. So board members, Clerk McNary, any comments?
No, thank you.
Okay. Trustee Otmar?
No comment.
Okay. Trustee Brian Swanson?
Happily surprised and somewhat amazed.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened,
Let's not question it. Okay.
but
I'm
let's
just
take the
kidding.
win.
Yeah.
Take the win.
Yeah, I don't have anything that I see that would make me not, actually, we're not even voting on this. I don't have anything that would make me think anything about this. So, trustee Dr. Hazen?
Yeah, no, just re-reviewing, but yeah, this is good that it's going down. Hopefully it continues that way.
Yeah, yeah. And also at the same time, right, you know, legal fees are a part of us existing and a part of us protecting liability for the public's assets. So, and for our kids. Okay, so with that, moving on to future agenda items, which is now 9:17, and I did mention to Mr. Gibbs that we might hit it about 9:30 to 10. Hopefully he's listening online. So future agenda items, I'll go around and see if anybody has anything, and then we also have this item that came in from Mr. Gibbs. So Trustee Otmar, do you have anything?
I would like to add, just taking a look at the consent contracts about the fingerprinting section. I feel that I pull that quite often, so I'd like to have some time to review that. So if we could, I don't know how we agendize that, but
That's okay. So tell me
perhaps
more.
there goes the legal fees again. But
That's okay. Tell me
Yeah.
more about what you were wanting to see on like the discussion about.
let me flip back. So specifically, sorry. You can come back to me while I flip. if
You
that's-
sure? I
Yep.
mean, we do, it's.
Oh,
okay.
for Mr. Gibbs, I guess we can, yeah.
Yeah, we have time. I mean, I'll come back. Okay, sure. But, okay. Trustee Brian Swanson, anything?
Thinking, I should have thought about it more. There was one thing we talked about last week when we were, or last meeting, when we were talking about the security assessment. And that it didn't include the DO. And
The DO got added.
it did get added.
I saw, at least I saw it in the packet.
Got added? Thank you. I've got nothing.
Okay, yeah,
That makes me feel really great. Thank you for doing that.
yeah.
Awesome.
Super cool. I'm actually, well, I'm next on the list. The only one that I technically have is that is just from my duties as board president, where I wanted to make sure that a member of the public was heard. So did y'all have a chance to read this? It's in your blue folder. It's just like 2-ish sentences at the top, and I'll read it out loud. So the request is, well, the request reads, the effect of the two Pacific Grove cannabis ordinances on PGUSD and safety of students, specifically the recommended distance limits between a cannabis store and a school or daycare center. Also, a recommendation that a portion of the cannabis tax be escrowed for use in PGUSD student drug education programs. Dr. Porras did have a chat a little bit with Dr. Gibbs, and so do you want to maybe, well, so I feel like Dr. Gibbs is asking for you correct me if this is completely not right, because you did speak to, you know what, since you spoke to him, silly me. I just want to make sure we do this, his duty, and so go ahead, Dr. Porras.
Well, we did speak, and I think what he was looking to do is have the board advocate as a board to the city to try to consider certain things. And he spoke to it already this evening. And initially, I think he was hoping that the board would have some influence on the decision and tried to clarify. And we really don't have any jurisdictional right. But it doesn't mean that the board can't pen a letter or be represented on a committee if that committee comes up from the city. It's not, I don't think it exists just yet. So I think he asked if he had a draft letter that he felt would be helpful. Could he present it to the board, and then the board could do with it whatever they want to? And I told him, sure, you can absolutely do that. At that stage of the game, if the board would like to, you can certainly assign a staff member to represent the district at a meeting, at a city council meeting, or to be part of a committee on behalf of the board and then report back. That's all fine. There's penning a letter as a whole board is always difficult. So it's probably better to have a staff member craft it and then bring it back to the board for, it'd be like a resolution, and you don't have any influence, but at least you can just make a statement and hope that gets some representation.
Sure, in which, our board has made resolutions with things that we don't technically have jurisdiction over. I don't think our board did, but I saw another local board when Roe was overturned. There was a resolution that in a governing body that clearly did not have, over that. So it is possible. I think that's as far as we can go, is a resolution. And so with his request here in writing, it sounds like he'd like a resolution that well, and he says specifically the recommended distance limits between a cannabis store. So, and what we can decide tonight, right, is not really the nitty gritty of the resolution,
Right.
but is if as a board, we feel this is even something that we would want to put on our agenda and decide upon and feel that it's in our jurisdiction. Because he's also bringing up essentially the district making an ask to the city for monies generated from the cannabis store. So I'll let that kind of percolate for a moment. Go ahead, Elliot.
Just one comment, and again, I'm hopefully not straying off, but there is the agenda item of the subcommittee with the city, and I'm just wondering if it's under the purview of that as well.
Maybe. I mean, the subcommittee with the city, that's pretty much up to, right, the district and the city, what they want to put on it. But of course, they would be open to hearing from the public, I would imagine. It's part of it. And who's on our city committee? Elliot and Trustee Otmar, you're on the city committee?
She's the alternate, yeah.
She's on the alternate.
Okay.
My memory. Okay. Okay, so we'll think about this for a moment and see if we want to put it on our future agenda for us. Of course, our next regular board meeting is August 3rd. Okay, Trustee Otmar, did you find what you were looking for?
Yes, the packet is large.
Yes.
So just for reference, so I think the piece that I keep coming back to is the box. I feel like the box gets checked a lot that says no direct contact or interaction with students. My preference there would be that whoever the vendor is, if these other boxes aren't being checked about DOJ clearance previously received or fingerprinting done by the organization, that there's a box perhaps that says something to the effect of will not be on campus with students present, or will not be accessing student data, something to that effect, so that it's less likely to be checked. Because I know a couple of times I've inquired about it, and it turned out that they had, a company had done business with the district previously, but the no direct contact was checked. instead of fingerprinting done or DOJ clearance already received. So I feel like this box gets checked by default, and I would prefer that it was removed and replaced with something that's a little bit more specific, that helps support student safety. And that's all I have.
Okay. Okay. So with that being a future agenda item, our next regular board meeting isn't until August. Staff, are you okay? Do you have clear direction on what that item would look like on the agenda? Okay, thank you so much. Elliot, did you have anything?
May I add one?
Yeah,
quick
yeah, yeah,
thing?
yeah. please.
Until that happens, could the message be delivered to anybody that is putting a contract into the packet under consent, that they understand that if there has been DOJ clearance, or if a company has, or an organization has already fingerprinted, that those boxes are checked instead, that until it gets changed, that no direct student contact isn't checked by default? Just, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, we've had entities that have been fingerprinted and it's an assumed no direct contact, but all we need to do is check the box that says they've been fingerprinted.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Yes.
if it's there,
Totally
then we
agree.
should know about it.
Yep.
And then if they are on campus and they haven't been fingerprinted, they probably should be fingerprinted. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And just so you know, there's no change we can make in the document until we review it as a board, but you're asking essentially for just like a sharper eye on what's existing and make sure that that's an accurate check of the box, right?
Exactly, as
Okay.
it comes to us, so that I will continue to pull them. It will save a lot of time, and not to be
Understood.
difficult, but with student safety in mind, I just want to make sure that the message is clear that if someone's been fingerprinted, please select the appropriate box as opposed to the default of no direct contact.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I lost who I was going to go to. Trustee Brian, you said you had nothing, right? Okay, Dr. Azen, anything?
There was one I mentioned earlier, and I cannot honestly for the life of me remember whether I filled out the Google form or not. I thought I did, but I might not have. Is just on the idea of site equity, particularly.
Hold on.
Thank you. The gold folder, I like it.
I'll go with this. In the meantime, Clerk McNary, do you have anything?
I think I did see an future agenda item come through the form
Yeah.
with that topic and some sub areas to look into.
Right, so that was one that I did mention and would love to see potentially. And again, I don't know if we need to get to full special meeting status on it or if it could be handled in a regular meeting, but really just reviewing the different, forms, different types, different meanings of equity, particularly in our sites.
Because there are some pending future agenda items that are on this spreadsheet that Mandy manages. And so it's possible that it's in the queue, but just hasn't been put in a date. So I'll let you look that over. If you don't see it on there, I might have another one. Okay. So Elliot's going to look that over. I don't have any future ones, except I'm just going to come back to the cannabis request. What do you guys want to do on this? Do you want to explore it? Did you find it, Elliot? Okay. Okay, one sec. This one right here.
Correct, yep.
Okay, great. Okay. All right, so the one that Elliot mentioned, it's here on the matrix. You did submit it perfectly, so it's on here. And so we had earmarked that to be a fall presentation around the September 7th meeting. So do you guys mind putting that on here on the agenda, listing it in that queue?
Got it. I think Mandy's listening as well, so we'll make sure it's on there.
Okay, thank you, Mandy. Okay, so back to the cannabis request. Let's go around and talk about this. So Trustee Brian Swanson, what would you like to do?
I don't know. I mean, we've been there before. We've been at the meetings. You've been at, I know, at least one meeting and spoke. I spoke at a different meeting, and
I remember that actually, yeah.
I feel like I'm not against it, taking a position on it at all, really. I mean, that's our students that we're fighting for. I just feel like the city's never heard us or never listened to us. But that's no reason to not continue to speak up either. And I do actually really like the idea of suggesting that it's like, all right, so this is now part of our town and I get it and it's legal but it presents problems, and if the city's gonna make some money from it, then maybe they should throw some money at our district too, to educate our kids better about what it is that we're looking at. I'm open to it, because that's a long way of saying I'm open to it.
You're open to putting it on the agenda to discuss it further?
Yeah.
Okay. Clerk McNary,
Yeah, I would also be open to putting it on the agenda, keeping in mind our jurisdictional limits.
yeah.
It's not an item that's likely going to be before us in August in any way. Are we more just looking at putting it on the agenda to decide whether or not we create a resolution? Or to decide whether or not we want to talk to the city? I guess I'm wondering what exactly we'd be agendizing.
The most we could really agendize is a resolution.
Okay.
So we would be I think we would be agendizing to then task at that moment, like in August 3rd, to task staff and direct staff to generate a resolution, right? Because we couldn't even direct you guys right now to
Right.
generate a resolution to put that on, because that's not part of this item. Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, do you want to discuss it further?
If the majority of the board is in favor of it, that's fine with me.
Okay. Trustee Atmar?
I'm fine with agendizing it and discussing it. I don't know that I like the idea of a portion of the cannabis tax escrowed for use in PGUSD. I think the optics of that are it doesn't sit well with me.
Money generated from the sale of drugs going to a school?
Absolutely, 100%. Thank you for stating it like that.
Mhm.
It's basically what it is. So, I mean, I look at this and I see that if it happens, it happens. But in one sentence, we're saying like distance ourselves from that, keep this away from the school, but also give me the money. So I
Mhm.
just don't like the way that that feels
Yeah.
personally. And I don't think that we should be funding students based on the sale of cannabis if we don't support it being in town. So that's where I kind of stand on that, but I'm happy to discuss that further at another meeting.
You have great ways of thinking. I like that way of thinking. It's really wise. Elliot?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's not in our jurisdiction per se, but keeping, and again, whether pro or against cannabis legalization, we are charged with keeping our students in mind. So I do like the idea of agendizing, particularly given your comments, Trustee Otmar, at least the first part of that focused on, potentially drafting a resolution. And I would even say potentially looking into further engagement with the city if possible. That could be part of that item in August.
I have a slightly different take. I read this and I just have my kind of black and white hat on, and I read that it's, asking us to kind of discuss or make a stand on the recommended distance limits between a cannabis store and a school or daycare. I believe those limits are set by entities much further up than us. And I do believe that the city will follow them because they are, I think, state law. So I don't have a concern that those distances will not be. If the city was putting something forward to say, hey, you know what, the town's really small, we're gonna need to actually put something and encroach a little bit, then I would probably say something, but it's not there. We're not there. So then I'm just, hypothetical theater in my mind. Also, the cannabis tax being escrowed for use in PGUSD. I don't want money generated from drugs being anything that we have our skin in the game, and then we're motivated or even appear motivated to generate more money coming to us. Like that doesn't seem right. I agree with Laura. That was such a great point. So I actually think we have bigger fish to fry. I think we talked as a board about drug education as a whole, right? We talked about like, let's zoom up, let's zoom out and talk about our health programming overall, because it's not just one program like the DARE program that's going to maybe make an impact, even if that program in itself is okay and good, like that's what I would like to spend my time on, because you see how fast these meetings go. It's already 9:35 and we had quote unquote a lighter schedule today. So I'd like to stay focused on the education aspect and not agendize this. So that's my take. So we'll go back around. As a board, we can decide whether or not we want to put this on the agenda, and we can go out to public comment too. So if there's any public comment on this item, okay, and we'll give it a moment. It doesn't look like there's anyone online. I'll just go back around quickly because it's kind of I feel like there's still a momentum in this conversation. So Trustee Brian Swanson.
Well, I would still be in favor of trying to talk about it. I don't think we're going to get it on a future agenda the way it feels right now. I do love the points that you guys made though too about, and I remember back, growing up in Minnesota when they heavily taxed cigarettes and all of a sudden it felt like we were in the tobacco business because so much money. I don't think this part of, or that part of this thing is that. But it's still a conversation I would like to have if we can have it at some point. And just think about the kids and the heartbeat of our town.
So you would like to put a resolution on the agenda?
I wouldn't mind going there.
Okay.
I'm not going to die on that hill, but I would still, to me, that's important.
Okay, Clerk McNary.
Some really good points made by my fellow trustees. I like the idea of focusing on the education piece of it as well. I think a future agenda item that I would be much more interested in seeing would be a comprehensive look at our health and drug education offerings at every level and kind of how they work together and the intersectionality of them, if that exists. So we could get kind of a baseline of where we're at and then know where to go from there. Yeah, so for right now, I don't think I need to see this on a future agenda item.
Okay, Trustee Otmar.
It's a tough one. I mean, I don't want to limit our talking about it, but I also know that our time is limited and the meetings do go fast. I think just from reflecting on the piece about the cannabis tax and, what our students might think of that. I mean, it's just such a, I don't know how you say it, like double-sided message. Don't do it, but we'll take the money. So it's a no for me. I wouldn't want to see this on an agenda. I think that solidifies it for me. Thanks for letting me talk through that out loud.
Yeah, we have great discussions when we're able, right? As a board, we just so very, not very often able because of the meetings. Trustee Dr. Hazen.
Yeah, I think it's already majority decided, but I will say, I remember, I think it was you, Superintendent Porras, that read a letter from the district about when the previous law was up, and that made an impact on me not being part of the board because it does remind the community about the need to think about our students. So I do still like the idea of agendizing it because I think it is an important point. Like you're saying, even if it's out of our jurisdiction for the school district to say, we are worried about the proximity and maybe the proximity, I mean, not to make a judgment on that, but we are worried about the proximity to our kids. And we want to make sure that the city is thinking about our kids when they're making decisions such as this as well.
I mean, I could see as part of a robust health program being, and maybe it's through the committee we've generated with the city, but I could see as part of that being an education or a mouthpiece to the city once a year about all drugs or about, any type of education. That is part of a thorough plan, right? Is that communication, advocacy, and education piece. And in that sense, we would now be spending time on this, which is kind of a one-off, but it's not part of kind of like the big heart of where I would like to see it. So anyways, so Trustee Dr. Hazen, okay, thank you. So it does sound like the majority of the board is not in favor of putting this on a future agenda at this time. So we will move forward with that. So staff, we are not directing you to put that on the agenda. We're not directing you to generate a resolution. Anything else on future agenda?
I have one more.
Okay.
Collection of developer fees. Can we look into that, please? I know the district receives the forms and has to affirmatively state that we do not want to collect whatever budget dust or small monies, but I do think they add up. I think it all counts. So I would love for us to look into whether or not we as a board would like to start collecting developer fees. Yeah.
Just a quick question.
Go ahead.
Staff. The district performed a developer fee study in 21-22. Is that something we can bring forward and review again, or would you like me to go through the process of providing a new, more current developer fee study?
That one seems pretty recent to me.
That's fine.
We did a study in 2022. I thought we.
Yep.
I didn't realize we commissioned another one since the one. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that seems recent enough for me, but the rest of the board, Elliot, he's nodding his head, trustee Otmar. Okay.
I'll look at it
Okay.
again. Yeah, I know you can hardly sit down when somebody says developer fees.
Is that what's going on over?
What a journey.
Never heard that.
I heard that from,
Budget dust.
I remember the developer fee.
What a journey. And you were the only trustee who voted in favor of it. So I'm excited for that to continue, Brian Swanson. Okay, all right. Anything else? Holy smokes, I didn't expect this tonight. Okay. With that, we adjourn.